District 19 in San Jose. And we are building Beyond Bernie, and we'd like to welcome you to the People's Assembly.
Yay!
Today, we'll do something that, as far as I know, has never been attempted, which is combine personal rallies with virtual panel discussions and speakers. Am I muted?
Lauren, you need to turn off your monitoring of it. Somebody's playing the monitor back in Restream or somewhere else, or watching it live somewhere. They need to turn it off.
Uh-oh, we're having a technical difficulty. Okay,
is there someone in the audience who's doing that?
As you can see, this is, like I said, we've never attempted this before.
Sorry, everyone.
Is it better now?
We're working a little detail out, but no worries. We're going to proceed. Do you want me to keep going while you work on that, Lauren?
John, what needs to happen? Is the sound okay?
How's that? John is our technical expert. I have to mention, as we're starting out, that this was thrown together by a lot of volunteers. And so I wanted to say that we have a great lineup that's coming up of actually physical rallies. This is, I think Lauren was trying to explain that what we
It's all good.
conceive.
Okay, can I keep going, Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, great.
Yeah, you're good.
All right, so what we're doing, as you can see, never been attempted before. We're going to combine the virtual and the live in person, and we're going to bring together events from all over the state and even from other parts of the country in order to have one consolidated people's convention. Our current circumstance of the pandemic is that we need to find new ways to organize, connect, and mobilize. So this is our response to that. Because the Democratic National Convention is virtual, Bernie Delegates wanted to create a space to make some noise for the people's message. So over the next 2 days, we'll discuss, debate, and elevate a variety of progressive issues from Medicare for all, Green New Deal, criminal justice reform, and even the complexities of staying or leaving the Democratic Party. This event is hosted by California Bernie Delegates and other progressive organizations, but we want to hear from you. So no matter who you support or what you value, your voice matters. So please participate throughout the convention by submitting questions in the chat, taking our people's poll, or tweeting us your rally picture to protest with us from the safety of your own home. So let's show the DNC what a people's convention can look like. Okay, and then also Mary's here with us. She is another one of the organizers. So Mary, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Lauren. And Lauren deserves a lot of credit. This whole vision of pulling together virtually using Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as platforms for both the physical rallies and the virtual Zoom panel discussions later was really her idea. So because of COVID, we could not do any, like shadow convention where people physically get together. So it kind of evolved in this really neat idea where, we just had a couple of rallies. We had a few panel discussions, but other delegates, as you can see, Hanya is already here and quite a few others, Chin Sim, Sudi, a big list of Bernie delegates jumped in, came up with some pretty amazing, really impressive content for their panels. And I think very thought-provoking too, as you can see the titles, Should I Stay or Should I Go? A Bernie delegate ponders the Democratic Party is a great title. And then the other that I really like is The Horrors of the Healthcare System. So anyway, there's a lot of very thought-provoking panels coming up. And I posted in chat, you can see a schedule, and there's also a link if you want to sign up. I just want to let you know is the Zoom link is different for Saturday and Sunday. So if you sign up for today, you can see all the events via Zoom, and even the ones that are live streaming from the field. You'll see that for Saturday, there's a link, and then for Sunday, you have to sign in again. So it's a totally separate link, but entitles you to all the events, and they're free. The other thing that we want you to do to help us out, because we focus mostly on creating our panel discussions and events. It took us, and we actually spent like 3 weeks on all this. We didn't have much time to do promotion. So we would really appreciate it's not too late. You can now promote it if you are using Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can broadcast that and help us. You can even email. You might even have an email you can forward, because what we notice is that a lot of people join at the last moment. And since we're live streaming, our audience, even though we see how many people right now, about 43 participants, we're going to probably really amplify it through, through all the many. The one that we're live streaming to, that's the Bernie for California, or California for Bernie platform, has 65,000 followers. And another one has 7,000 followers. So we're going to really get a lot of eyeballs looking at our live stream, besides the participants joining via Zoom. But if you could direct your friends to the Zoom session, they will be able to participate more directly, ask questions of the panelists. So with that, I will turn it over to, should we introduce Barbara Lee yet, or what do you think?
Absolutely, we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anya?
Thank you, Mary, for that wonderful introduction. I do want to welcome every single one of you, some familiar faces and some from around the country who've joined us in continuing the progressive conversation. We welcome you here. As Mary mentioned, we do have a fantastic list of speakers for the next 2 days and great panels of discussion. Without any further I mean, this woman doesn't really need introduction, and what we say about her does not really fit the accomplishments that she's made so far. But I will read a quick bio of her, and we'll go to her welcome video. Congresswoman Barbara Jean Lee is an American politician serving as a U.S. representative for California's 13th Congressional District. Now in her 12th congressional term, Lee has served since 1998 and is a member of the Democratic Party. The district, numbered as the 9th district from 1998 to 2013, is based in Oakland and covers most of the northern part of Alameda County. Lee is a former chair of the Congressional Black Caucus from 2009 to 2011 and is the current whip and former co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, which she served in from 2005 to 2009. She is the vice chair of and the founding member of the LGBTQ Equality Caucus. Lee has played a major role in anti-war movement, notable for her vocal criticism of Iraq War and for being the only member of the Congress to vote against the authorization of use of force following the September 11 attack. She is currently one of our co-chairs, serving with Congressman Ro Khanna. Let's go to our video.
So just for those of you who don't know, Congressman Lee really wanted to be here, but she had another engagement, so she pre-recorded a message just for you all.
Hello, I'm Congresswoman Barbara Lee, representing the beautiful 13th Congressional District of California. Of course, yes, I say it's the most enlightened, diverse, and most progressive district in the country. Welcome to the People's Assembly, Building Beyond Bernie. And thank you so much for inviting me to join you virtually today. Thank you also for coming together to have this important discussion, and yes, to continue to push for real transformation in our country. We are in the middle of so many crises right now. The pandemic that has taken so many lives, the worst economic collapse we have seen in our lifetimes, the global climate emergency, the crisis of systemic racism that continues to hold our country back. And on top of everything else, our democracy is in crisis with the president who is openly attempting to sabotage the vote in November. We have a lot of work to do to get Trump out of office. Everything is at stake in this election. It is literally a matter of survival, a matter of life and death, especially for communities of color. As my friend, our beloved Congressman John Lewis would say, we have to vote like we have never voted before in this election. And then, when Trump is gone, The work has got to continue under the Biden-Harris administration. Yes, we will keep up our work for a Green New Deal, for Medicare for all, for an end to America's endless wars, and for true equality and dignity for all. You know, my first convention was when I was a delegate for the great first African American woman who ran for the presidency, Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm. And so I have long understood the importance of being at the table and working within our party to make it stronger. So thank you so much for continuing to do this work and for carrying that baton forward. Together, let's keep on fighting, and we must keep on organizing. And let's do everything in our power to send this racist, corrupt, and incompetent man in the White House and all of his cronies packing in November. Thank you again for all that you do.
Great. Well, that was a great welcome from Congresswoman Barbara Lee. I want to just check in with Lauren. Do you think that for those of you who don't know, there's some rallies going on live right now. One is at Soledad Prison, and I actually had a little bit of involvement in that. What happened is there were over 200 Black inmates who were rounded up a few weeks ago at 3 o'clock in the morning, woken up. Some of them were physically just thrown around. And the wife of one of them, Tasha Williams, decided to organize a rally to protest. They weren't just woken up in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. They were rounded up and put in, I think, the cafeteria, hands tied behind their backs and with no masks, no social distancing, at gunpoint actually. And their possessions were ransacked, and a lot of them lost their books and things like that, not returned yet. So Tasha Williams decided to organize with the help of local activists who are fighting, who want to defund jails, for example, and defund prisons, and Black Lives Matter. They're currently rallying in Soledad. They were supposed to be coming from another event, and we'll be checking in to see if they're there yet. Do you have any updates, Lauren, on are they gathering right now? So I just want to let you know that they've organized a series of rallies because of the interest of the Bernie delegation in their cause. They've actually organized one rally every weekend. This is Black August. And so they've asked us to help them out with this particular one. And so we have invited the local news media, KION TV is supposed to be covering it live today. And the Monterey Weekly, I think, was going to be there. And Univision, the Spanish language channel, TV channel, may be covering it. So we're really excited to support them. We even sent burritos down to help the families that are driving. I think a lot of the families of inmates are coming from like Bakersfield, hours away, Southern California, Oakland area. So we wanted to support them. And anyway, what's the news, Lauren? Are they almost assembled there? Should we
Which
go
one
to them?
for Soledad?
Yeah, Soledad. And then we also have another rally that is going on. And that's, I believe, is that the Manhattan Beach one that Reggie is organizing?
Yeah, Bruce's Beach.
Bruce's Beach. So for those of you in LA, so we've got one in Soledad, which is Central California. For those of you who don't know exactly where it is, it's in Monterey County. And, it was made famous by George Jackson, the Jackson brothers, and Angela Davis. This is in the 1970s or late 60s. I can't remember exactly the date. And then, it's got a lot of history. And then the Manhattan Beach rally is a general rally by Burners, but I think they are really going to be talking about Medicare for all. I believe that's one of the issues that they're pushing. I think there's a lot of discontent among delegates right now. I don't know if some of you have heard that a huge number of delegates, Bernie delegates, voted no on the on the Democratic platform because it did not include Medicare for all. And it was a disappointment. So anyway, so there's a lot of reasons they're rallying out there right now. I think some of them are also disappointed with the choice of the VP. And for those who don't know, our delegation actually in California recommended 3 really excellent, VP nominees, Barbara Lee and also Karen Bass and Nina Turner. So anyway, so I think that's why they're out there. Anyone have any, should we go to any of them? Are any of them ready yet?
So I have some dots coming. So I think someone's about to hop in here and then we can go to them. But in the meantime, do we want to take a look at the schedule for today?
Yeah, that's a great idea. Do you want to go ahead and do a preview? So just to let you know, we have a great lineup that I think our focus today especially is on healthcare. And then we have this one other one that we thought would be very interesting, the last one that's at 5 o'clock. That's really about how a lot of Bernie voters are thinking. Yeah, we know that it's somewhat heresy right now to talk about, questioning the Democratic Party. But I think that privately, that is what a lot of Bernie voters are thinking. And we are, the purpose of the series of events, which we call kind of a shadow convention, People's Assembly, is to really elevate the voices of the grassroots. We want to let the voices of the grassroots tell the people who are in power, this is what we're really thinking. And so I think you'll find that our events are going to be, a little bit more real and raw. Oh, and Sam is now telling me, I think. Hi, Sam.
Oh, hey, I'm sorry. I just got a text and
Okay.
Oh, they aren't quite ready yet. So we're going to go ahead and maybe go ahead on the schedule. Sorry.
Okay. So yeah, you guys can all see the schedule here, right? So we already heard from Congresswoman Barbara Lee, and now we're going to be going live to the Soledad Prison Rally, which you were just hearing about. And after that, we're going to go to the Burn the Streets rally. And this is a rally that's taking place at Bruce's Beach, which is a part of Manhattan Beach that used to be owned by a specific family, and it was basically taken from them. So they're going to talk a little bit about the significance of that area and some other things that have happened there. We're going to hear from some amazing, diverse grassroots activists at 1:30, and also have some discussion with Ash Cholera, and who's a assembly member in California, as well as Jane Kim, who was the political director for Bernie 2020, and also former San Francisco supervisor. And then it gets really interesting when we go on to our afternoon panels. So these are going to be panel discussions where we have speakers, and you could submit your questions and take part in the discussion as well. We're going to go a little bit more into detail about each of these, but as you can see, the 2 p.m., which is, we're going to go with that, is 5 p.m. Eastern, because I wanted to include the Eastern times on here as well. Why and how to win single payer in California. Then at 3:30, it's the horrors of for-profit healthcare system during COVID. And at 5 o'clock, should I stay or should I go? A Bernie voter ponders the Democratic Party. So that's what we have coming up. Let's take a further look in depth. Okay, so if you want to get involved, we want this to be an interactive convention where we actually get to voice our opinions and have these discussions and have these debates, and show the DNC that we have a voice too. All of our, for instance, the delegates, all of our voting, happened before the convention even started. And so they've kind of figured out what their message is, but we want to remind them that that there's other things that we think they should prioritize as well moving forward, and we are a big part of their support base. So if you want to take part in our virtual rally, send a picture of you with your rally sign, and in the tweet you can put a little bit about your story, and tag us here at People's Assembly, or beyond Bernie. And also, you know, let's tag the Dem convention. Let's show them, you know, maybe we can't bring the protest to their literal door, but maybe we can bring it to their virtual door. Many of you are already in our Zoom meeting, but if you're watching from a different source and you'd like to join our Zoom meeting, there's going to be a link in your description for today. That's going to be a different link for tomorrow. We also have a people's poll, so you can express, you know, what's important to you, what you'd like to see the next administration prioritize, and you can have an opportunity to share your story there too, why you care about it, and we might share it on the air over the next 2 days. Let's see, and our complete schedule. So if you want to see more about all the stuff that's going to be going on, then that's also in the description. And please share us. If you're connected to any progressive pages or you're on Twitter, these are the places where we're streaming live. And if you could share that stream for us, then that'd be really awesome. So here's ways to be involved. Let's see. All right, so as you can see, this is the first event that we're going to be going to. Actually, let me give you the official statement. So this is hosted by the families of Soledad prisoners, like Mary was speaking about before in terms of what happened to them. It's really brutal. No masks were given to them in the dead of night. It was not safe. This is on over 200 Black prisoners at Soledad Prison that this happened to. So that's the protest we'll be going to first, but that's also tied to a prison reform or abolition panel that is going to be going on tomorrow. So you can see down here, these are the speakers that we're going to be discussing that issue, as well as Tasha Williams, who is one of the people directly involved in what's going on in Soledad Prison. And so she can share her story. And here's for our Burn the Streets caravan. So this already started, it's going on. They're sending me pictures and video. So either we can show the video or go live to them. I wonder where they are in the process right now. So if anyone knows Audrey Reggie and wants to check in with her and see if they might want to go live soon, then it looks like we have some time and we could do it. And they're going to explain a little bit more about the significance of Bruce's speech. Then we're going to have our why and how to win single payer in California. So why has COVID disproportionately ravaged people of color communities, and what is the root of the current healthcare inequities? As the largest state in the country and with the 5th largest economy in the world, can California achieve what other states might not, enact a state level Medicare for all? Join a distinguished panel of leaders and organizers in the movement for healthcare, racial, economic, and environmental justice for an intersectional discussion examining these questions and more. So that's at 2 p.m. Sorry, just checking into the chat to see if any of our ralliers are here. Then we're going to be going into the horrors of for-profit healthcare system during COVID. So frontline healthcare providers on how the system exploits workers and patients and why Medicare for all is the solution. They'll talk about lack of PPE, understaffed hospitals, and the problem with for-profit model of healthcare. And this is going to be a really awesome panel discussion with some of our Bernie delegates who are also working on the front lines of COVID. And here they are. Okay, I need to not lean forward because it washes out my face. And last but not least, and that one was going to be at 3:30. Last but not least, we have our 5 o'clock panel. Should I go or should I stay? A Bernie voter ponders the Democratic Party. So Bernie voters keep getting disappointed with the Democratic Party leadership's decisions on the platform, on the selection of the VP again and again. This is a frank discussion of what the grassroots are thinking. It may seem like hearsay, but this is what's being discussed in private. Okay, so we're going to have, as you can see, you know, people outside the Democratic Party, people inside the Democratic Party, Uh-oh, someone's annotating on our screen. If you could not annotate, please, that would be great. Okay, news for me. I'm just gonna have to kick them out. But these are the lessons we learn. All right. Okay. Maybe he didn't know that it was doing it for all of us. So maybe I'll let him back in from the waiting room after we have a little discussion. But anyway, maybe he was just commenting saying, you know, that this is such a big issue that we need to stay, or we need to go, or we have, you know, a lot of opinions on this. So that's going to be a really interesting discussion. Uh-oh, he's back in. So anyway, those are the things that we have going on for today. Hey, Mary, do we have an update on either of the rallies? Because we would like to go live to some people. If I know some people are here that are part of the some of these panels that are upcoming. So if anyone would like to raise their hand and speak a little bit about what's coming up, or their thoughts on any of these issues, then let's go for it. Okay, Dr. Bill, I'm going to ask you to unmute, and then you will be good to go. Great.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, everyone who's organized these forums. I'm very enthusiastic about our panel at which will be on the horrors of the for-profit healthcare system as regards COVID-19, and I think you'll get firsthand kind of stories and outlook from people dealing with this, especially on the front line. I think most of us here, and certainly all the Bernie delegates in the crowd, everybody who voted no on the platform because it didn't include Medicare for All, recognize that Medicare for All would be a solution, if not the solution, to our lousy performance regarding COVID-19. And that's because it puts in place a form of public payment, which allows public input and transparency, which we don't have in our system, which is absolutely absurd given that we have a public health emergency going on. So it has taken those numbers. We know single payer system saves money and saves lives, and COVID-19 has blown that out of proportion, probably 10 to 100-fold of those numbers of lives and money that could be saved. So I think you'll hear firsthand from these folks, you know, just the amazing evidence in the favor of that argument. So thanks everyone for joining us later for that panel. And again, to the organizers, thank you.
Dr. Bill. Is anybody else here on the call who voted no on the platform on the basis of Medicare for All who would like to share? We will be sharing some videos later on. Lori, would you like to go ahead? I'll ask you to unmute. There we go.
Yeah. Yes, there's not a whole lot more to say. Voted for Bernie and voted no on the platform. And we're fighting here in Colorado. We've got a really fabulous group in Colorado that's leading. And there was a point in the beginning when Bernie's campaign was asking everybody to be hush. I don't know if everybody in California remembers that, but the Colorado delegation started questioning that, and the campaign dropped it. I don't know if anybody knew about that, but I ended up getting a call from the Washington Post. That was interesting, but it made Bernie's campaign stop asking us to be silent. And the Colorado delegation is not being silent. We are still going forward.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us from Colorado. I was so inspired when that list came out of like the almost 800 people who all voted no from all around the country. I've been seeing the little like Facebook border, you know, I'm a delegate, I'm voting no. And it's really awesome momentum. And so I hope that they start to hear us, but we're not giving up yet. If I have time, I'm going to compile a bunch of clips of Kamala Harris saying that she's for Medicare for all, so we can remind her that she likes to say that. So we'd like to see that. I just got a call from one of the rallies, and they said they're running behind a bit, but you know, this is grassroots life. So yeah, we could definitely take a few more shares if some more people want to share about this.
And just to add to that, Lauren, if you do have any questions or want to participate in the discussion, please do use the participants option to raise your hand. And we're going to try to make it as progressive as we can when calling you out to discuss and comment. But I do see Nina's hand up, and I also see Audrey's hand up. I'll go ahead and unmute. Nina, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Nina, PLEO delegate for Bernie in Florida, and I too did vote no on the platform because it did not include Medicare for all. And we need new and improved Medicare for all now.
Thank you for sharing. Audrey, go ahead.
Shut up, bitch.
Oh.
Trump 2020, bitch. Fuck you, bitch. Trump 2020.
Okay.
That's one perspective.
That right. Okay, so Stephanie, I am going to go ahead and unmute you.
Hi, everybody. My name's Stephanie Turpnine. I'm a delegate from the 4th Congressional District for Bernie Sanders in Michigan. And I voted no on the platform also because of the lack of language about Medicare for all. And also because there was nothing in this platform about cannabis decriminalization or legalization. I'd like to see it at least come off the controlled substance list, because we have a lot of cancer patients who, you know, are benefiting from this and having tumors shrink because of cannabis. So it's high time that we do something about this federally. And I think it's a related issue to Medicare for all. In our district here, we have a extreme need for Medicare for all and also living wages here. But I don't know if you've saw this at all in the national news, but my district actually took a huge natural disaster recently. I live close to Midland, Edenville, and Sanford, and Wixom Lake, which were all the areas affected in Michigan by the dam failures. Did you guys see those in the news? It was a huge deal here. Those are about 15 miles away from here. My sister, who is in charge of Central Michigan for Bernie Sanders, she, her and I work together a lot for Bernie. She's over there right now delivering food. She's been going to food trucks to bring in food to these people. Now, these people are in a very unique situation because what's happening is they've all had to pay this expensive flood insurance, right? Because of after Hurricane Katrina, there was this requirement for flood insurance, right? But none of them are able to actually get a claim for the loss of their home because of the dam failures, okay? And the hydroelectric plant that owns these dams has filed for bankruptcy. They definitely don't have enough money to pay out to everybody something, okay? And so what's happening is right now, we have entire towns and huge sections of a very large town close by, Midland, with people that are living on their front lawns in tents or in their cars because FEMA has not responded with emergency housing. We don't live in an area, this is very rural, we don't live in an area that even has, you know, homeless shelters. And so right now we have people that are living in tents in crowded spaces during a pandemic. They have had cars washed downstream, so they have no way to get food. That's why my sister's over there bringing food. it's really a huge disaster. And I'll tell you what, our governor, who is so awesome, Gretchen Whitmer, thank God for her. I don't know what we'd do without her right now. She took swift action and did everything she needed to do to get FEMA relief to everybody. And then Trump let her package sit on his desk for 7 weeks and did not sign for any FEMA relief. Okay. So people have been living on classroom floors in the school. We're talking about people, I mean, this isn't just regular flood damage. This is like houses that wash downstream 20 miles, okay? It's like a Hurricane Katrina situation here in Michigan, okay? And so my sister is delivering food to these people right now. She goes to these free food drop-off events, you know, where poor people can pull in and get food. And she goes to the end of the line and she fills her van with whatever's left. And she drives it into these places. And some of these places, we actually literally have to carry boxes over washed out roads to get people food, or we have to meet them at the road washout because we have roads that haven't even been fixed. We have bridges down, we have dams that are wide open and lakes that are like tiny little rivers right now full of debris. And huge open flats that are very dangerous, unstable ground. And I'm telling you, there is literally no FEMA relief in sight for these people yet. So we also have a lot of people right now, because of the situation, that are struggling for access to health care. These little towns are not towns that even have hospitals or clinics. Okay, they're like little burbs. There's like, you know, less than 1,000 people in each of the towns. And then Midland is affected by this. But now we have these people in this situation where they are struggling to get their home salvaged with no money, okay? And now some of them are losing their jobs because they can't get to work. They don't have clothing to take to work. That, you know, they're just really struggling financially, and they need this FEMA aid. But they're also, guess what's happened in this area? There's a huge COVID-19 outbreak in this area now for the population. So it's really bad, you guys. And in this area, all the stores also washed out. So they don't have supplies locally. You know, they need FEMA relief. So, you know, one of the things I've been really trying to do is just pressure Congress, contact people as many as we can, you know, to push for some type of relief and some type of housing for these people. Because the scary thing is, here in Michigan, winter is coming in a few months. Like it's 2 more months before it starts snowing here, and these people have nowhere to go. So, you know, and some of them, a lot of these people were minimum wage workers that did not have health care, and they're facing this COVID-19 crisis now because of the situation. So I voted no on this platform because we've got to demand that we get this Medicare for all. I really believe that the Democratic voters, the majority, I've seen lots of polls that 80% of Democratic voters support Medicare for all, even moderates. And I'll tell you what, my dad grew up he's been voting blue for the last 10 years, and he's with us on this. He voted for Bernie, and he has always supported universal health care. And there are, I believe, lots of even moderate Republicans who would support this. And I feel like if we can somehow get this into the platform, we might even gain some votes from the other side. So, which we need right now, because we have got to beat Donald Trump. So anyway, I just want to thank everybody for all your activism that you're doing across the states, and thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak about why I voted no on the platform.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Stephanie, for sharing with us. Mary, Lauren, do you have any updates on the caravans? Okay, beautiful.
Sorry about this. I was went dark for a bit because we were having some burrito issues where we sent burritos to the rally, so they're picking it up right now. So anyway, River is reporting now over there, and if you see her in the room, she's going to report from the rally. They're just, you know, as with one of the things about curating grassroots activism is things don't always start on time. So we're gonna probably go back to them, but I think River is gonna give us an update and an interview with Tasha Williams, who is the wife of one of the inmates who was in this raid at 3 o'clock in the morning a few weeks ago. So if you see her, Lauren, you can give her the floor or unmute her mic. Do you see her yet?
Mary, she is not visible. I'm
Oh,
not.
okay.
Is it possible for her to log right back in?
Oh, who's not visible? River?
River.
It says, oh, she said the host removed me from the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, so she was trying to get in. So, okay, folks, I'll just say try again. Try again. And I think we will. Okay. So, but anyway, I just want to let you know that she's actually organized, one rally every Saturday. And so Black Lives Matter local in Monterey County, as well as a number of other groups that are interested in jail reform. In fact, you will see some of the speakers tomorrow. There's a great panel. It features actually my husband, who's a 20-year instructor at Soledad Prison and had been working on prison reform for probably like 2.5 decades. And so anyway, they're going to be talking along with other folks who are local activists, younger activists on, discussing whether prison reform is even a good idea anymore, because my husband frankly feels that it hasn't been successful. And so he's actually supporting prison abolition now. And so they're going to be talking about those things and what could replace prisons. My husband's talking about restorative justice. So it's going to be a really interesting discussion. And Tasha Williams is going to be on that panel. She's the leader of this rally. So if you see River, let me know, Lauren, because I think, it says we have to start the rally. Tasha's about to speak. Okay, great. So can you give her, Lauren, the floor? River says they're starting. I'll mute myself now.
Hi, this is River, and I'm here at Soledad State Prison, and we are starting our speeches, and we have Tasha Williams on the mic right now, so I'm going to flip it over to her.
My name is Tasha Williams. My husband is Talib Williams. He's a peaceful prisoner housed at Soledad State Prison. He was a victim of the July 20th raid on 200 Black inmates, most of whom are peaceful and have no violent write-ups against them for 15 to 25 plus years. They were brutally thrown out of their beds and assaulted. They were not allowed to grab their masks. They were zip tied and taken to the chow hall, where they were placed pretty much side by side, 4 men to a table. They sat there for 6 hours and they were questioned about affiliations to Black Lives Matter and the revolution happening on the streets. And they expressed concern over the revolution reaching the inside of the prison. After they were released back to their cells, they found that revolutionary literature by Black authors or about Black revolutionary figures had been confiscated, including my husband's own writings. And now 14 days after the raid, we experienced our first cases of COVID in the prison. And now those numbers have reached 19, I believe. And that's in the past 2 weeks alone. So we are here to demand transparency from Soledad officials who claim that this was a normal investigation of gang activity in the prison. However, the paperwork proves otherwise. These men are peaceful, and they have been peaceful for much longer than a decade. And it speaks for itself what this was all about and why it was only Blacks that were raided. And yeah, we want transparency from officials. We want the 602 forms that were filed by inmates after, or by prisoners, excuse me, after the raid. And we want officials to finally tell the truth about what happened on July 20th.
Yes.
Now we have a few other speakers. Next is Miriam. But she's waiting on stage.
Okay. Thank you. Again, my name is River. We're here at Soledad State Prison, which is, I saw some questions, it's in central California, just a little bit east of the coast. Soledad State Prison has a lot of history of anti-Blackness. If you don't know of the Soledad Six, check that out. I'm sure we're going to have more lessons on Black history today. We're going to hear from Miriam Smith soon. But she's waiting a little bit, so maybe we can kick it back to you and we'll have our next speech in just a moment. Thank you. Thank you for doing this, by the way, and thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you so much. So should we come back to you later, or did you want to interview? Is Miriam Smith there, or anyone else you want us to talk? It's up to you. We can always come back to.
Yeah, let's sorry. Let's come back.
Okay, we'll come back to you. Just text us when you're ready. Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna come back to I think they've frozen up a little bit, their connection, but
Great.
Are you?
Do we want to go over what we're gonna do tomorrow
Yeah.
do we have the other rally in here
Yeah,
yet?
or is the other rally there?
They said they were
So-
behind a little bit, but if you want to go ahead and call or text Audrey, then we could do that.
Okay.
And I'll go ahead and share.
Actually, can Chin Sim, I don't know if I have Audrey's phone number handy. I think Chin Sim is there. Could you text Reggie and ask her if her rally is ready to call in? So anyway, as you can see, everyone, this is rather dynamic and actually pretty cool that we can zoom in to watch the rally at Soledad Prison, and then we're going to go to Manhattan Beach a little bit later. And I just want to give you a feel for, why we are doing this. When a few of us came up with the concept, we really felt, we could do virtual meetings, and that's very manageable and easy to control. But we really wanted to amplify the voices from the grassroots, because a lot of times, like Stephanie just very movingly, I think it was Stephanie, told us the story of her experiences, those stories don't get heard and in the mainstream. And even our Democratic leaders ignore those regular voices, regular people's voices. So we wanted to give you a flavor of, what's going on every day in the grassroots, people holding rallies about the various issues that really move them. And so, so even though it's always a little challenging to curate live rallies and events in the field, we thought it would be important to try to do that. So we're going to just probably bring segments of it in as the time is right. And usually these events are usually behind schedule. So we'll probably get to Reggie. So Chin Sim, let us know when Reggie is available at Manhattan Beach to zoom in. But I think we also wanted, did you already review the lineup of the great speakers we have coming up? Ash Cholera and Jane Kim already, Lauren?
I didn't talk about them yet, I think, just to
Well,
mention
I can
them.
briefly.
Oh,
I can
okay, sure, go ahead. Yeah, thank
I can
you.
briefly go over that, no problem. We're going to have a number of incredible grassroots organizers, and we're also going to introduce Assembly Member Ash Kalra, as well as Jane Kim, who was the political director for the Bernie campaign in California. But our grassroots speakers are 3 young activists who are on bot, and they are incredibly passionate about their work in the Black Lives Matter movement, March for Our Lives, as well as immigration. And we do also have a speaker on Muslim queer issues and gender identity. We will, I don't know, Lauren, if you do have that flyer that we created with their names, I'm more than happy to send it to you so we can insert here.
Great, I don't have it yet. Yes.
Okay, okay, I'll do that. So stay tuned. 1:30 to 1:45, they will be speaking, and I'll come right back with that flyer for you, Lauren.
Thank you, Hanya. So I think at this point, while we're waiting, I was wondering if I wanted to give our audience a chance to speak up if there's any other stories that you want to tell us about activism in the grassroots, because as I mentioned, you know, our intention was to give space to people in the grassroots to, you know, let us know what other issues you want to bring to our attention, especially, you know, along the lines of the subjects that we have decided to focus on. I think there were 3 themes when we developed the People's Assembly. The first one is healthcare for all. The second is justice for all, and that includes, you know, things like Black Lives Matter, immigration rights, etc. And the fourth one is basically a livable planet for all. So we're focusing on the Green New Deal. And so if anyone wants to talk about that a little bit while we're waiting for our grassroots organizers to get to Manhattan Beach, or actually zoom in from Manhattan Beach. So did you want, Lauren, did you see anyone raising their hands? Let's see here, let me just look through. Rick Maynard, did you want to unmute Rick?
Mary, just so everybody gets an equal opportunity to speak.
Sure.
Sure,
Okay.
just so everybody gets an equal opportunity to speak, please refrain from longer speeches. Keep your comment to about maybe 30 seconds so everybody gets an opportunity to.
Okay, good idea. Thank you, Hanya.
Yeah.
River is back also, so we might need to at some point cut over to River and the rally, just a heads
Okay,
up.
so go ahead, Rick, and then we'll go to River, okay? So maybe like, did you say 30 seconds or so, or a minute? Go ahead, Rick. Oh, we got to unmute him. Hold on. Sorry, someone's got to unmute you. I can't do it easily. It keeps. Did you get it? Okay. No, he's still mute. You got to unmute yourself, Rick.
There we go. Well,
Okay,
thank you,
great.
everybody, for all what you're doing. I'm here in New Hampshire, and I've been a labor citizen activist since the 70s. Grew up next to the only Superfund site that had active construction going on in Woburn, Mass. That worked with Ed Markey back when he was the state rep, and I've been active in one way, shape, or form ever since. And what I'd suggest possibly right now was the biggest concern with union members at this point is the post office. It's the biggest news item going, and I would strongly suggest if building on that would also build on your union membership involvement. And Bernie here in Manchester, New Hampshire, actually had a dinner for us and a dance that he put on for all the labor people here in New Hampshire. So I thank you all. Take care and keep it up.
Thank you so much, Rick, coming all the way from back to East New Hampshire. And there was a, let's see, who else was next? I can't see her well now. Did you notice who's next?
Stephanie, sure, Stephanie, please go ahead.
I think Kendall hasn't spoken. Has Kendall spoken? Sorry, we should probably let.
I
and then
think
go to
the other
Stephanie.
rally might have just arrived too.
Oh, sorry. Could you all hold on? We're going to go to the rally. That's right. We were going to do that.
Let's see.
So
Ed, I'm gonna.
we'll hold
Are
your
you
questions or comments, and we'll get back to you. Sorry about that. Okay. So which one are we going to go to now? In Manhattan Beach or River in Soledad?
Let's see. River, are you there?
Are you there, River?
Will matter until Black Lives Matter. They will be, as long as Black lives are being held behind the scene, being shut, silenced, being mistreated, then no other lives is going to matter. So what we have to do is we have to stand up when something happens to Black lives. So I'm really proud and thankful today that people are bold enough to show up. People are bold enough to stand up. People are willing to come out and say something because they are so corrupt in the prison industrial system that they will continue discrimination. They will continue singling out Black lives, and they will try to pretend like they treat everybody the same, but everybody is in prison over there that's in there in the jail cell, but they're not all treated the same. And the only way that people are going to know is that people on the outside bring it to their attention. There has to be awareness from us on the outside to bring to other people what's happening on the inside. So I'm very proud to know that people are holding down the fort here and that they're showing up, and they will be showing up in Black August every single weekend. And I encourage people that can show up to show up. I was sitting here thinking before I got ready to speak that we have always put a change in the system. So we have over 200 inmates that were ripped from their beds at 3 o'clock in the morning in Soledad that were Black. Now, this is wrong because of how it was done. They were taken without, as many has already said, without mask, without an opportunity to get their mask, without warning. And of course, when they do raids, they don't warn you, but to snatch you out of your bed and throw you from your bunk in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, and to hand tie you and to hold you hostage just to get you sick, just to get you, just to not care, to treat you like you don't care, and to cause you to possibly die, because now we have several cases. I think someone said 14 cases of COVID now. But when they snatched these prisoners from the top bunk, they weren't just snatching prisoners. They were snatching our Black prisoners from those top bunks because they are used to being able to get away with murder and crime towards Black people. So we're here today because we say enough is enough. And we won't stop saying enough is enough. And we won't stop saying we're tired and we're sick and tired of being singled out and mistreated. Even in the prisons, I work toward, at what Pause the Cause movement, I work toward stopping the prison industrial system. Ending mass incarceration is one of the main things that I do. With Pause the Cause, I work toward stopping recidivism. I work toward stopping people from calling the police, saying to the people, let's stop and think before you pick up that phone and call the cops. And then you regret it later. There's I had a phone call the other day, and my daughter called me from Texas, and she said, Mama, this lady is mad at me. And she began to tell me the story. And this lady was married to somebody that had been to prison before and was on probation. And she walked in on her husband. And I take my work really serious, so I was kind of disturbed about this call. But she walked in on her husband on a relationship, having sex with somebody, okay? And she, my daughter had rode with her that day, and because she got off work early and they were doing something. So my daughter was kind of like you say, a witness. The guy walked in, the girl started fighting with the guy, and he pushed her against the wall. What I was told. This guy was on probation, Black man, Black woman. So her anger was so, doesn't deserve a 17-year prison sentence. Not the push, but she was so angry that her husband was sleeping around on her. She called the cops and she complained about the push and the strap and made it more bigger than what it was, blew it out of proportion. But it got out of her hand and out of control. And so he ended up with 17 years. Now, why did that call disturb me? Because my daughter said that she hounded her and hounded her to write a statement. Well, I say pause the cause. I tell my kids, if somebody shoot me, if somebody stab me, if somebody mistreat me, you better not pick up the phone and call the cops. You better not talk to the cops about it. So I'm adamant about talking to the police about any harm done in the Black community. They don't care about nothing but revenge. They don't care. So I told my daughter, did you write the statement? And my daughter said she did. And I hung up the phone on her and did not want to speak to her anymore because I do not believe that having somebody in prison to be mistreated, especially if they're Black, is the answer to any kind of problems that we have in our community. It's not the answer to even the low-level crimes or even the crimes that they trump up the charges on. You do one thing and they give you 6 or 7 different charges just to make it stick so you can't fight it. There's a law that just hit in California and it's the SB, look it up, it's the SB 25, I want to say 2525, I might be wrong. But Ellen Baker Center supported it, and so many other people supported this law. It hit August the 7th. Look that law up because now when they get all these trumped up charges and they start heading to the court, the judge is going to be held accountable if he rules on all these charges cops are writing up. So the community needs to get behind this and make sure that racial profiling,
I'm so sorry. We're cutting to our other event. They're both happening at the same time, so we're going to hear from this one for a little while, and then we can come back to this amazing speech that we've been hearing over here. I'm asking them to unmute.
So for those who had just joined us recently, we're going to Manhattan Beach, where one of our delegates, Reggie or Audrey Wan, has been organizing and leading this.
Lauren, I see Ed, but I'm unable to unmute.
Me too. I guess we should go back to River.
They need to unmute on their own.
Yeah, they have to unmute. So Chinsim, can you ask?
Where are
I think we hear
people that are there? Where are their parents? I mean, where are their family members? We need their family members rallying around this, and we need their family members to not stop until something is done. We have to remain the voice on the outside, continue to speak, continue to tell people what's going on the inside. Thank God for Tasha being able to have information, direct link on the inside. We need more direct links on the inside of Soledad Prison so that we can get people out here standing up, speaking up, and we get letters wrote into the prison. We can overwhelm to be the warden here. Then I had another really good friend that was the warden. Let me see, it was 2015, 2016. I understand he left like a year or so after, but just be on the outside.
And that is to fight for the people, to serve the people. Fight for the people, to serve the people. Say it with me. Fight for the people, to serve the people. Louder. Fight for the people, to serve the people. Fight for the people, to serve the people. Fight for the people, to serve the people. My name is William Moses Somerville. Thank you for gathering us. Let the caravan continue and the struggle continue. God bless you.
Can you give a recap of the caravan, like what we went through? And then can you start it over again because they had it on you?
The whole time.
Well, no, we lost it.
All right.
William, we hear you. Hi there. William Somerville is also one of our amazing delegates from the state of California. Go ahead, William.
All right. We are gathered again here to acknowledge the caravan that we have embarked upon as we take the message of Medicare for all, Green New Deal, no more wars, reparations, as well as justice for all. We're burning the streets. I would like to acknowledge Reggie. I would like to acknowledge Dave Menendez. I would like to acknowledge Ronald Clinton. And I would like to acknowledge Allison Rose Jefferson. We have made a stop in this caravan at Bruce's Beach, where the The beach is named after a Black family with the last name Bruce, most specifically Willa and Charles Bruce, where they lived here in Manhattan Beach, but were forced out of their house, out of their land, out of their property by eminent domain. And so we're here to make a declaration to return Bruce's Beach back to the descendants of Bruce's family. Along with that, as we are making the declaration for the Bruce's family, we also stand with our Black brothers and sisters who are American descendants of slavery in seeking reparations for the 400 years, now 401 years of degradation, oppression, as well as Jim Crow and Jane Crow affecting the Black community. And so we have to acknowledge in this space on Bruce's Beach that Black people used to live here. So we're calling on legislators, the Democratic Party, as well as the Republican Party. People have redemptive qualities, I guess. You know, that's part of my faith expression. We're calling for reconciliation. We're calling for healing. We're calling for fairness. We're calling for equality. We're calling for equity. We're calling for justice, because we know, in the words of Dr. West, justice is what love looks like in public. So in this venture, for our politicians, you have one job and one job only, and that's to fight for the people, to serve the people. 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 My name is William Moses Somerville. God bless you. The struggle continues.
Right. That was great. Thank you.
Reggie, do you want to say anything else?
Reggie, did you want to say anything from Manhattan Beach? This is the rally, and then they're going to caravan over to the men's jail in LA. So go ahead. Are you there, Reggie?
If you like Reverend William today, you're gonna love him tomorrow when he.
Oh, I guess they can't hear us. So that was the rally that precedes the caravan. So I believe they're going to go to the caravan next. Go on the caravan to the LA jail. You know, basically the reason we're highlighting a lot of these demonstrations at prisons and also jails is because we think that it's really important to talk about the funding, you know, of for a lot of cities and counties, and actually I should say counties and the state, the budget for jails and prisons is pretty astronomical and really takes away from the programs that we all want as progressives. So what we wanted to do is to really highlight, and I think Black Lives Matter has really done a great job of talking about the people's budget. And so we're basically trying to elevate that to, you know, to talk about not just, oh, it looks like, is Ed gonna say something? I'll mute myself. It looks like Ed is trying to say something.
Ed, you have to unmute yourself. Okay, so you don't have any more comments.
Oh, okay, I think they're all finished. Thank you so much. I think they're finished.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Some haven't had any violations or otherwise in over 25 years. In fact, we want the spokesperson to confirm that the Black population was praised by the warden himself for helping maintain a peaceful, positive program over the past 2 years, while the majority of non-Black population has been on lockdown.
This is back to Soledad Prison.
We want the spokesperson for CTF to issue a public statement acknowledging and answering as to why everyone rated was questioned about Black Lives Matter. 6, we want the spokesperson for CTF to issue a public statement answering as to why we were forced to sit crowded next to each other, virtually naked, for 6 hours in a freezing dining hall, zip tied the entire time without masks. 7, we want the spokesperson for CTF to issue a public statement admitting to the fact that it was because of the raid that COVID entered Soledad, CTF. The first positive case was discovered 14 days after the raid, which is the amount of time it takes the virus to incubate before a person displays symptoms. Meaning, that they were exposed to the virus around the time of the raid. We also want to test results of everyone rated there at the time made public.
Make everyone
8,
tested.
we want the spokesperson for CTF to issue a public statement explaining why there wasn't a single Black officer involved in the raid and why CTF employs such such a small amount of Black officers in an institution where the majority of those incarcerated are Black. 9, we demand that CTF hire more Black officers and diversify the ranks of sergeants, captains, as well as lieutenants with said officers. 10, CTF security squad, ISU, IGI, which has not had a single Black person on its force, hire Black officers as well. We demand that all CDC small R officers and officials be mandated to actively participate in racial diversity and anti-racist training. 12, we demand that every officer involved in the raid be suspended pending investigation. These officers included, but are not limited to Officer Martinez, third watch officer assigned to C-Wing, who was part of the extraction team, who violently snatched people out of bed, slamming them against the wall head first, resulting to some people having to be taken directly to medical in wheelchairs. We also want Officer Martinez investigated concerning his coming to the prison to participate in the raid during the non-working hours, working overtime, which is in violation of the CDC small R agreement to the governor's budget, which cut officers' pay by 10%. 13, we demand a public Senate hearing looking into the racial, political, and financial motivation of the raid on 7/20/20. 14, we demand the immediate release of the elderly, youth offenders, all awaiting relief under Prop 57, those who have been in prison in 15 years or more, who have at least 10 years without a violent rule violation report, and 15. And to then, we demand that we be provided the ability to purchase JPay tablets so that we can email out families, our families during the pandemic lockdown. And lastly, we demand an immediate end to racial profiling of Black and Latino incarcerated people of the criminalized culture and stop the criminalizing our culture. Now I want to speak on these demands, right? See, in 2011, 2013, we had the 5 core demands. And these demands are compatible because one of the demands was that we shouldn't be retaliated against. Now, I got this book right here because this is one of the books. This is some of the literature that they harassed the men for having. And it's a book. It's a published book. So if you read literature and you helping yourself to heighten your awareness, your conscience, to change what's going on in your life, you've been ostracized, stigmatized for it. Title 15, which is a rule book. Their own rules, Title 15, 3004C stipulates no one is to be retaliated or harassed because of their ideology, because of their political view, or their handicap, or their anything. This is their own rules, but arbitrarily what they're doing is violating their own rules. So if they're violating their own rule, we the people, we need to demand a replacement of their board. We need to demand a replacement of their officers. Those acting under the color of law. State agents acting under the color of law, invoking, we need to invoke our right, our First Amendment rights to say, vote them out. So now is the time for us to centralize together all the people under no justice, under capitalism. We are they for all of us need to come together. All of us in the California prison focus. We are one voice. All the people out here, the family, we got to agree to bring these men home from one structure to the next, whether it's re-entry housing, and get these people involved with this movement building. All power to the people.
Power to people! Thank you, guys. That was Minister King from Cage Universal and also California Prison Focus, California Prison Focus. We can take a little break while we're between speeches, and I'll be back. Thank y'all.
And next up we have,
Thank you, River, for
Yeah,
for reporting of the event that's happening currently at the Soledad prison.
So,
go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to say that, you know, we have coming up probably some speakers. Let me see what the time is. I believe at 1:30. I just want to let you know that we are going to have Ash Kalra, our local assembly member in the Silicon Valley area, as well as Jane Kim, who is the supervisor in San Francisco, and also a leader in the California Bernie, I can't remember her exact role, but I think she was a chair, co-chair or something like that.
California Bernie campaign.
The Bernie campaign, right. So thank you for your help there. And so I just want to let you know in advance that that's coming up very soon. And I think we're going to be wrapping up a little bit these Soledad rally, as well as the Manhattan Beach protest about the LA prison or jail. I was about to say that the reason, you know, a number of us really want to highlight this issue is because we really think it's important to elevate the discussion about defunding prisons and jails, because that takes such a huge part of our state budget. You know, if California did not spend so much on prisons, we would have way more money. You know, we have to balance a budget every year, but there would be so much more money for education, for example, from social services. And, you know, some people, and you'll be hearing about this later, are making a proposal to actually implement Medicare for all at the state level in California. So for those of you who really care about Medicare for all, there's a really exciting talk coming up, and Chin Sim has helped organize it with others, and there's really a very sort of rich panel with great insights. So I encourage you to stay, even if you want to take a break and come back later, but be sure to join us. I think is at 2 o'clock. That is when that panel is going to be discussing these matters. And so I just want to make that connection. A lot of people may be wondering, why are we talking about prisons and jails? Well, it's very relevant because the intersection of all our movements, you know, whether you're working on Black Lives Matter, Medicare for all, Me for Me, Green New Deal is a real big deal. The problem is we never have progressives enough money. Our elected officials always say, those are great ideas, but we don't have the money. And we're proposing that if we cut the budget at the local level, defund the police, and at the county level, jails, and state level, prisons, and at the federal level, the military industrial complex and its associated sort of organizations like ICE, Border Patrol, et cetera, that we would have way more money available for all the great programs that we are interested in supporting as, you know, Bernie supporters, progressives. So what we're proposing is a discussion about the people's budget at every level of government. So just want to let you know that those are the things that we are wanting to talk about. And that's why we are bringing you information about the activism in the grassroots from Manhattan Beach to Soledad. So are we going to Anyone else have anything to say? Oh yeah, we had a few people who raised
They're
their
live
hands, and
at
we should get back
Soledad.
to
They're
them.
live again at Soledad.
Oh,
If we wanna
sorry.
hear the speaker right now.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. I'm trying to ask him to unmute.
Officials who run these facilities. They're bold-faced lies and cover-ups. They say they're quarantining new inmates in Monterey County Jail, but they're mixing them in the same cells, almost encouraging the spread of COVID. Yep. It's almost as if they want to see our Black and brown brothers, sisters, and siblings incarcerated sick. It is, and I want to just point to the fact that everything that the structure across the overpass is built on is built on the premises and the ideologies of white supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about defunding the police, we have to talk about abolishing prisons as well, and reforming our criminal justice system as a whole. The police are the beginning of the injustice, and this is where it ends here. We cannot allow this to end for our Black and brown people inside, and all people inside. And I think about the reason why these raids were undertaken, taking literature, taking writings. It is an attack on Black thought and Black consciousness.
Yeah.
Because that is the enemy of white supremacy. When Black people educate themselves and they empower themselves and find their own self-determination through community organizing and through the research and realization of the truths and the injustices that are being perpetuated in Monterey County Jail, a threat. And that's why they're called threat groups. Not because they're gay, because
they threaten white supremacy.
They're threatening white supremacy. So I just wanted to really, it's the foundation which this whole country is built upon. And it's time. This is a moment of reckoning where we're changing that. As Miriam was saying, flipping the outside, bringing all those voices back to the streets, so that way we continue to raise the calls to demand justice for everybody inside, and freedom and liberation, and rehabilitation. Bring them back to their families, back to their homes, back to their communities, so that way they can contribute positively, because we know they have that promise and that capability already. If not, then we know how to raise them, and we know how to support them. So we have the solutions here where they say, what are we going to do when we release them? We have all those answers. They're just not listening. So we got to keep this movement going and keep getting louder. So thank you.
Yes. Woo! Thank you, Nick.
So we have a very special next speaker. First of all, we have the family of Alex Moss. Alex was one of the 200 incarcerated Black people who was extracted violently on July 20th. And we're going to ask them to come up here and hold the signs. And we're going to hear from Imani, who is the
Amani.
Okay, we're going to hear from Amani, who is the daughter of Alex Moss. Grandchild. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't get the script ahead of time. The grandchild of Alex Moss.
Yeah, Amani.
Come on.
Woo! Yes, Amani.
Yes, that's great. Into the microphone.
You can do it.
She doesn't want to say anything.
You can do it.
Got it.
You guys are amazing.
I want Alex to come home.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's innocent. And who can be treated fairly. Okay. That they can't. I love my papa.
Yeah.
Okay, we want him home, right?
Okay, so bring them home.
Bring him home.
Bring him home.
Bring him home.
So when I say, what's the call? You say, free them all. What's the call?
Free them all.
What's the call?
Free them all.
What's the call?
Free them all.
Thank you very much, the family of Alex Moss.
Thank
There
you.
are many other families that are impacted by the racism and violence inside Soledad State Prison. I'm here representing, I guess, apparently a number of different things, but I'm also, I want to give a short statement from the Prisoner Solidarity Committee of Workers' World Party. We are in full support of the fight for justice for the Black prisoners at Soledad. The Prisoner Solidarity Committee started in the midst, it started right before the Attica Rebellion, which was really the result of George Jackson being assassinated at San Quentin. It was part of Black August. And we are here today, 50 years later, saying the same struggles, the same racism, the same attacks are happening inside, only they're worse because of COVID-19.
Yes.
We are demanding, along with many other groups, the mass release of all vulnerable prisoners. And I don't care, it's not a question of innocence. It's a question of whether or not we want to let COVID-19 be a death sentence. Right. It should not be a death sentence. And it's certainly for Black and Latinx prisoners far higher than any of the other prisoners. So we're here today. We are in full support of the struggle. Again, as what Courtney said, let's bring out more people next week.
Yeah.
If you have a canopy, please bring it. If you have ice and drinks, please bring them. We do have drinks here. We also have some food that we want to share with people in a little bit.
Yeah. Can Zay speak?
Okay.
All right. Good job, Zay. Go for it.
By the way, I just
Thank
want to
you all
let people
for
know
being-
that I just want to let you know that Bernie Delegates donated food to the rally.
Can we go ahead and unmute?
Yeah, I think we're getting ready to transition to Ash Kalra and also Jane Kim.
Okay, well, prior to Ash and Jane taking the stage to share their words of wisdom, it is my honor to introduce our next group of young grassroots activists. They're brave, unbought, and unbossed, and will continue to shape the future of this country on the basis of equality and equity for our most vulnerable communities. Our first guest is Tandiwe Abdullah, who is a youth organizer with Black Lives Matter and the co-founder of Black Lives Matter Youth Vanguard. She helped to conceptualize and launch the Black Lives Matter in School campaign adopted by the National Education Association. Her work is to create safe spaces for our Black youth to organize around racism and anti-Blackness, particularly around school. Tandiwe has been active with March for Our Lives, emphasizing what gun control must look like for Black youth, and is a part of National Coalition of Youth Organizers of Color, Out of Pocket. I've had the honor and privilege of sharing and holding the banners at the Women's Equality March with Tandiwe, along with some wonderful activists. And without further ado, Tandiwe. Can we please spotlight her, Lauren?
Okay, I was wondering, I was like, did I do something wrong? Hi, y'all, my name is Tandiwe Abdullah. Well, I don't really have to introduce myself. I guess that was what that was for. So I'll just keep it short, kind of provide some background as to what we've been doing lately. But really quick, I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me to speak here. It means a lot, so thank you. So yeah, Black Lives Matter Los Angeles is the first and largest chapter in the BLM National Network and BLM globally. And yeah, so our chapter has been doing a lot of work, especially not just recently with George Floyd, but like all the years where it was kind of silent, right? Where people kind of forgot about BLM, and people were like, where did BLM go? Like, what have they been doing? One of our biggest things that we were doing in that time that we're still continuing to do is our Buy Jackie Lacey rallies every Wednesday. And so we know, obviously you all know how important elections are and how important voting is. DA Jackie Lacey has ran unopposed, I think, for about 4 years. I don't know. She's been unopposed a lot. And she's a terrible DA for anyone who has been paying attention to the things that she's been doing. She is actually what she's not been doing. She has not been prosecuting killer cops. She has rather been protecting the system of white supremacy, of police brutality, of institutionalized racism. And one of the most horrendous things that she has gotten away with, or rather her husband, was pointing a gun at my mom and other BLM protesters who went to her house to deliver petitions and to demand accountability from her. Her husband actually woke up and pointed a gun at my mom, who literally just sat there and said, "Hey, we're demanding more from you. We want you to prosecute killer cops." Just literally a normal protest that happens all the time outside of mayor's offices, school board members' houses, I mean. And so we are finally at a point where I think we have built up enough support from the community to vote out Jackie 2020 by Jackie 2020. But we still need a lot more support in that capacity. And so they said for me to give everyone a call to action. And so if you can show up every Wednesday at the Hall of Justice in downtown Los Angeles from 3 to 5. Pretty sure it's 3 to 5. And if you can't do that, encourage some friends, try and get at least 2 people there. If you can't do that, make sure that you are talking to folks around you and educating them on why Jackie Lacey must go. We also have a lot of material for that on our Instagram and on our website. And yeah, just vote out Jackie 2020, support People's Budget Los Angeles. And yeah, I think that was it, but hope, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Tandiwe. This young woman has accomplished so much in the 16 years that she has been on this earth, and it is an honor to share this moment with you, Tandiwe, and send all of our love and blessings to your siblings as well as your mother, who is a force to reckon with. She's also the co-founder of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles. She will be on our panel of discussion at 2 p.m. for our People's Budget tomorrow, August 16th, which you're all invited to. Thank you, Tandiwe. I'd like to then introduce Thomas Kennedy, born in Argentina, came to the United States of America with his parents at the age of 10, first living in New Jersey before settling down in Miami. After living as an undocumented immigrant for over a decade and seeing the daily struggles his parents overcame in their daily lives in order to have a better life, Thomas became involved in student activism and immigration reform advocacy. He graduated with the International Relations major from Florida International University and worked for SEIU Florida, the Florida Immigrant Coalition, the Bernie 2020 campaign, and presently serving as the Florida coordinator for United We Dream. Thomas.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me today. I apologize. I am streaming from my car. I'm actually in the field today. Have my mask and everything. I just took it off because I'm alone in my own car. But yeah, I'm here outside of immigration detention facility called the Chrome Detention Center in Miami-Dade because another person has died while in detention. This is one of several people that have died in recent weeks. And yeah, at this facility alone, over 132 people have been tested positive for COVID, and they only test a small percentage of the population. So it's pretty scary that, considering the small amount of tests that they do, so many have tested positive. And I wanted to talk to you all about what the situation is in Florida and really across the country for immigrants, right? But here in Florida, just getting a test alone for COVID-19 is so difficult. Remember, immigrants, whether you're a Latino, a Black immigrant, wherever you're from, it is incredibly difficult to have health insurance, right? Because in this country, we have this nonsensical system where we tie employment to to healthcare, and we've had millions and millions of people in this state become unemployed. So already a demographic, a population that was disproportionately impacted by lack of healthcare, that has been compounded through this crisis. So not only they can't access healthcare that they need through this pandemic, but they can't access the tests. The tests take here in Florida up to 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes more, to get your results. The literature, the instructions you get once you get the test to retrieve your results is all in English. There's no Creole, there's no Spanish, there's no other languages for people to be able to navigate the system. They often ask you for your driver's license or a social security number for the app to retrieve results, something that undocumented immigrants don't have. So there's so many obstacles, right, to navigating life through this pandemic. And here in Florida, if you don't have papers, if you're not a citizen or a U.S. permanent resident, you cannot get a driver's license. It's not like other states like New York or Maryland. There's no way for you to get a driver's license, which means that if you get stopped by the police for running a red light or going through a stop sign, or let's be frank, just because a police officer racially profiled you, that means that you can be put in a local county jail for driving without a license. From there, you get an ICE detainer placed on you, which is mandated now by a state law passed by our governor, Ron DeSantis. And from there, you're transferred over to an immigration detention center, like the one that I'm at today. And that's the last point that I want to talk to you all about. These detention centers are horrible. Often they are for profit. They have bed quotas that they have to fill, to get government subsidies, to keep the facilities running. And not only are the people in detention not given protective equipment to take care of themselves, the staff is not given protective equipment themselves. And remember, the staff at these facilities, the guards, the people that are handling the food, they're coming in and out of the center, possibly being carriers of this virus and propagating the infections inside, right? And yeah, we are not seeing the leadership that we want to see from elected officials here in Florida in terms of taking this on. We've been asking, can we have an independent inspection of these facilities? Can you guys do a tour inside? Because we don't know what's happening in there, but we're seeing the high rates of infections and the deaths. And what we hear is, no, it's too dangerous. It's too dangerous to tour inside of these facilities. Well, if it's too dangerous to put on a hazmat suit and take a tour as an elected official, then why are we holding people inside of these facilities in the first place, right? Immigrants that are coming here looking for a better life. So it's really, really scary what's happening. And as was mentioned, I'm working for an organization called United We Dream. It's the largest immigrant youth network in the country, over 500,000 members. And right now, we are trying to incite our community to go out and vote, right? And to vote for people that are going to represent our values. Look, the Trump administration is attacking TPS, temporary protected status, for numerous countries that came here decades ago looking for a better life because their countries were in disarray, because of various disasters. They're attacking DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. Hundreds of thousands of immigrant youth, their lives have been thrown into complete chaos, and they don't know what's going to happen. And now the Trump administration is defying a Supreme Court order that's telling them to accept new applications, and they have shortened the length of that DACA status from 2 years to 1 year. So if they get another term, they are going to amplify these attacks and they are going to end DACA. So please go to unitedwedream.org, sign up to volunteer. We have something called the Here to Stay Squad that you can look up. It's our boots on the ground of folks who are doing voter outreach and yeah, building power for our communities. And lastly, I just want to thank all of you, for being part of this movement, for being delegates, and yeah, for being in this awesome community. Thanks everybody.
Thank you, Thomas. And some of you may recognize Thomas's face from from the YouTube and Twitter clip that has been circulating when he protested Governor Ron DeSantis's COVID-19 news conference. So be sure to check that out. You know, he's a brave young activist, and we look forward to seeing more work from you. Next, I do want to introduce. Thank you, Thomas. Next, I want to spotlight a young activist by the name of Ramesh Nadeem, who happens to be a queer Muslim organizer and an activist based in Austin, who works on issues on immigration justice and reform, political engagement in the Arab, Muslim, and in the Middle Eastern communities, and reproductive justice through developing frameworks native to his Southern immigrant context. Ramesh, if you could unmute yourself and share a few words of wisdom with us.
Hello, salam, durood, shalom, namaste, jai bhim. Welcome yourselves to the space with whatever greeting you may need. So I want to tell you a little bit about one of the many places I call home, Houston, Texas. It's the most diverse city in this country, and once while driving through the suburbs that ring around the city, you know the kind of suburbs I'm talking about, places where billboards advertise white men playing golf in these idyllic landscapes, you know, blonde-haired, blue-eyed children attending amazing schools, playing in newly built playgrounds and pools. We've all seen places like this, or many of us even live in places like these, white flight suburbs that keep a kind of segregation alive. So on my drive in Sugar Land outside of Houston, I saw one of these billboards that made me do a double take. It's because this particular billboard showed brown, Desi, and East Asian kids on it. And I didn't know how to feel about this. Does this mean we've made it? Is this the American dream? Is representation here and maybe a similar kind of representation that we're now seeing on the national stage? Can we just pack up our banners and signs and go home now? But then I remembered and reflected a little more on the history of race in this country. I recalled how Irish, Italian, white, Jewish, and other communities were once outside of whiteness in this country. How it was only through decades of assimilation, erasure of culture, and acceptance of white supremacist structures that oppress Black and Indigenous lives that these communities were accepted into a broader category of whiteness. And so today, our community faces similar choices. Do we continue on this path? Do we buy in literally and figuratively into the same systems that oppress us here and abroad? Or do we join our BIPOC siblings in the struggle again for justice that made it possible for us to even be here? Similar questions face all our communities, migrant or not, queer or not. And I keep saying we have a choice, but we really have no choice at all in the face of Islamophobia, surveillance, fascism, and state violence. The only option for our continued presence in this nation is to truly call it our home. And the only way to do that is to invest in the liberation of its structures and its people. In other words, to hold it to account. So in doing this, we have to heed the call of Black, Indigenous, and POC activists who are speaking this with prophetic wisdom in our streets. We have to understand that the systems that oppress us, like white supremacy and colonialism, are the same in their logics, aspirations, and tactics, both here and abroad, for our communities and others. And we have to understand that our liberation can only be collective. I remain struck by a particular image I experienced again and again during protests in the past few months. I saw the violent resources of my city, my state, and my country deployed in an organized mass of men, of horses, of weapons of war, grenades, and guns against nothing more than Black and brown young people's joy. I saw Black and brown young people dancing in the streets, twerking in the streets, facing the anonymous bodies of state violence against us, only to be met with an escalation of violence and flash grenades long after the media had left hours before, all in response to us dancing in the street. And it made me realize and reflect a little more on the tragedy and the joy of our situation. The fact that the systems that oppress us recognize our joy, our collective action, and our vote as fundamentally threatening to their existence. They met Black and brown youth dancing in the street with weapons of war and terror. Damn, that's powerful. Our dancing was met with weapons of war. And to me, that tells me something about the power of the people in this country. Our music and our dancing threatened their guns and grenades. And immediately in this situation, when I recognized that, I felt chills, and I looked around me and I felt a desire to pray in this protest and this chaos. And of course, throughout the protest, I was sort of spotting, where are my fellow Muslims out here? Where are the hijabis? Where's the people who look like me? All of that stuff. And I saw them all over. And so I went to a group of folks and I was like, are y'all Muslim? Do you want to pray with me? And so while crowds were running to and fro, while the flash grenades were continuing to rain on us, while the lines were still advancing and receding as they were in that situation, we all stopped and paused for a celebration and a prayer and a collective stillness with each other. And so in these difficult moments as our nation comes into new liberatory articulation, I really want to invite all of you to stay grounded in the power of our joy, the power of our prayer, and our calls for justice. Thank you so much for the work that everyone is doing here.
Bravo. Bravo. Beautiful.
Wow.
Well done. Thank you. I'm assuming that there's not a single dry eye in this room after these powerful speeches. And it is the youth that builds this country, and it is you that we rely on to carry the torch. So thank you for sharing those words, powerful words with us. Our next two speakers are familiar faces. They served on the platform, Sanders Platform Committee, as well as they have an extensive history in political activism and civil rights justice. I'd like to introduce to you Ash Kalra, who is an American politician serving currently in the California State Assembly. He is a Democrat representing the 27th Assembly District, encompassing parts of Eastern San Jose. Kalra is the first Indian American to serve in the California State Legislature. Kalra, an attorney, served in the Santa Clara County Public Defender's Office for 11 years. Prior to being elected to the Assembly, Kalra was a member of San Jose City Council, where he represented District 2 in South San Jose for 8 years. When I spoke to him earlier and said, I hope I do your introduction justice, he said, just say a few words. So I said, with no further introduction, I will have you spotlight Lauren, if you would please. Ash.
Yes, well, thank you so much for the introduction. It's amazing to be here, especially with these three incredible speakers we just heard from. I think that this speaks to the fact that we need people that have lived experiences that are a cross-section of who we are as Californians, as Americans, to be more and more part of our political system, but to be more and more part of making the decisions for all of us. And so, just being here is very invigorating, and being part of this particular group, this club. When I look around, I see so many people that I either know or look forward to knowing that are getting more and more involved in the process. And when we see the reality of what's happening right now with the COVID crisis, it's exposing inequities that have been around for a very, very long time across a cross-section of our society: healthcare, economics, criminal justice system. And we heard from Tandi about what's happening in LA with the DA's race. And I'm so glad she mentioned that and highlighted that, because we have to see what's happening at our local races, in our state races, in our city councils, in our school boards. Because as much as we wanted the Not Me Us movement to be successful and have Bernie Sanders in the White House, the reality is that this movement has proven to be successful this year. When we see the number of elected officials that are being elected over establishment candidates, over candidates that have way more money. And the fact of the matter is that each and every one of us have to do what we can to continue to pursue and push that movement forward. But we know it's not going to be easy. It's not supposed to be easy. The reality is that we walk in the footsteps of those that have come before us for generations and generations. And believe it or not, and I know that most of you know this, it was way harder for them than it is for us. But it doesn't mean it's going to be easy for us. And we have to think about the next generation, especially when I see the young people here. Even you have to think about the next generation that you're fighting for as well. Because at the end of the day, the inequality we see, I'm in San Jose. We call it the capital of Silicon Valley. It really is the capital of inequality in the nation. If you think about the Bay Area and think about having the most billionaires anywhere in the nation in our state, and yet we have, in my district in Silicon Valley, 3-4 families living in a home, thousands living in the street, dying in the streets. That's unacceptable. That is not a symbol or a sign of greatness. We need to make sure that we do whatever we can to turn back these inequities that have taken decades to get to. So I say that because I don't want folks to get discouraged, because what we're fighting for doesn't happen in one election cycle, or doesn't happen with one candidate, or with your favorite local candidate that's running for a race. This happens based upon a cumulative effort of us not giving up. Because I'll tell you, if we give up, there's no one else coming behind us to save. I don't want to be either pessimistic or build you up, more than you think. But the reality is that all of us together are a powerful force. In California, if we want Medicare for all, I can be in the legislature pushing for it, but it's not going to happen until people are on the streets pushing all the legislators that refuse to support it to get on board. Because at the end of the day, either they're going to be there because of their ideals, or because they're afraid of losing their position, or you get someone else in there that's going to support the values that we're fighting for. Criminal justice. I had the Racial Justice Act. And the next, and I was asked also to think about a call to action for everybody. We have 2 more weeks in the legislature before our session's over. The eviction moratorium is done September 1st. We have a bill in the legislature right now that can actually prevent those families, literally millions of families, from being evicted September 2nd. Are we going to get it through? I don't know. The reason why I don't know is because I don't know how my fellow legislators are going to vote on it, if we're going to get 2/3 of the legislature to vote on it. And that's why all of us have to wake up and pay attention to your senator and your assembly member and what they're doing to prevent millions from potentially being evicted. I have a bill, the Racial Justice Act, that will root out racism in our criminal justice system, that the DAs are fighting tooth and nail, and it's the kind of bill that really speaks to what Tandi was talking about earlier on what's happening in LA with Jackie Lacey and this built-in systemic racism that we have to have the courage to root out. And the reality is we can't stop fighting for that. Because look at the convention this next week. Do we have Black Lives Matter on the stage? No. They bring in Bloomberg, the stop and frisk king in New York City. So we have to recognize that at the end of the day, whether they let you on the stage or not, we have to make sure that the movement doesn't stop, that we continue to push forward, because we have so much at stake and so much of what we're fighting for at a national level. When you look at the platform that I think we all voted against, at least I did, but the platform that is put forward, the reality is that a lot of that platform, a lot of what happens comes from the cities, comes from the states. And so we have to make sure that whatever vision we have for our nation, that and in California, we can do it because we won California. The progressive movement is strong here. Does every elected official represent that progressive movement? Not necessarily. So that's why you all have to jump up and say, I'm running for school board. I'm running for city council. I'm going to run for the water district. I'm going to apply to be a commissioner. I'm going to run for state assembly. And that's where we have to be not just thoughtful and cognizant about what we can do individually, but this network of folks that I'm seeing here, this beautiful, beautiful people, we have to stay connected in the years to come. We stay connected, we keep this movement alive, and we root out the corruption, the corruption that prevents us from having healthcare as a human right for everyone, the corruption that prevents us from having a Green New Deal, the corruption that's allowing people to die that are in prison right now from COVID that don't pose any threat to our community. So the farm workers that are out there in 107-degree heat that don't have necessary protections, that's what we're fighting for. We're fighting for all of those workers. And we have to make sure that when I'm pushing something progressive in the state assembly, or we have someone, we have Black Lives Matter fighting to get a justice in LA and kicking out the DA, or you have a city council race and your city is not defunding the police, and you say, you know what, we need to get new council members. That's where we have to stay connected so that all of us can have each other's back, because that's how we're going to see a transformation in California. And I'll tell you this, when California transforms, it will transform the rest of the nation. So I just want to thank you all, because you all inspire me. And I'm so grateful that that you put this assembly together. And let's keep fighting all the way until November this year. I know there's a lot of elections going around the state as well. And I'll do another plug for the LA DA's race to get Jackie Lacey out of there. But after November, when we come to January and get this monster out of the White House, we're going to keep fighting for our progressive values. We're not going to stop. And we're going to hold the Democratic Party responsible, that's saying they're for justice and they're for Black Lives Matter and they're for a Green New Deal. And they want to say all these great things that sound great on placards and sound great in campaigns. Well, we're going to fight for it, and we're going to hold everyone accountable. So again, thank you. You can tell I'm kind of worked up because I'm excited by all of you. And so let's keep fighting. And I know you're going to hear from one of my favorite people, Jane Kim. So let's get to her sooner rather than later. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Ash. Thank you. You took us to church and back. So we appreciate your words of wisdom here. And so our next guest here is, again, a familiar face, also a part of Senator Sanders' platform committee, Jane Kim. who happens to be an American civil rights attorney and a politician, and the first Korean American elected official in San Francisco. She represented San Francisco's District 6 on the Board of Supervisors between years 2011 and 2019. She's currently a member of the San Francisco's Democratic County Central Committee and was the top vote getter in California Assembly District 17 in 2016 and 2020. She recently served as the California Political Director and National Regional Political Director for Bernie. Prior to her election to the Board of Supervisors, Kim served as a member of then President of the San Francisco Board of Education. It is an honor to have you here, Jane. If you could please find Jane and put the light on her, that would be great.
Thank you so much for the incredibly kind introductions. And it's great to follow my really good friend, Assemblymember Ash Kalra. We don't have very many progressive stalwarts at the California State Legislature, which is such a shame because the California State Legislature passes 2 to 3 times as many bills as Congress does in DC. So it's important for all of us to pay attention to who our representatives are on the state legislature. It is not a progressive state legislature, despite the fact that we have a 2/3 Democratic majority. The fact that we're having trouble passing an eviction protection bill, AB 1436, and a millionaire's tax, AB 1253, just demonstrates how much we need to do to organize in our own state. But before August 31st, please reach out to your representatives. These are all things that we fought for on the Bernie 2020 agenda, and we can make them a reality here in the state. And we know that we can win. We know we are the majority of California, and we proved that by winning 46 out of 53 congressional districts here on March 3rd, 2020 for Senator Bernie Sanders, who came in first place. And what an extraordinary feat that was. When I started as a California political director a little over 1 year ago in June of 2019, we had very high goals and we exceeded and surpassed them. But the reason we were able to do that is because of you, because the movement and the grassroots organizing that happened from the most energetic, the most enthusiastic, and the most righteous volunteers that we had in the country. In fact, California boasted the largest number of Bernie volunteers for the entire national campaign. Not only did we work hard to door knock and phone bank across the state of California, we also phone banked into Iowa, into Arizona, into South Carolina and New Hampshire. In fact, many of our other state directors were depending on California volunteers to help us win. And what we saw is that when we went to people's doors, in fact, we went into neighborhoods that campaigns have never door knocked into. And when we called into the Asian Pacific American community, the Black community, the Latinx community, we saw that our agenda actually made sense. So many voters didn't understand what Medicare for All was. But when we were able to knock on folks' door, and I'm sure many of you experienced it, I went door knocking every weekend. No staffer was too good to go door knocking. I saw that folks just didn't understand the senator's platform because the media had done a terrible job of explaining what it was. But when you went to the door and explained what Medicare for All is, and I see Shirley Toy nodding her head, yes, CNA, people are like, wow, this isn't radical, this is practical. I completely support this. So we got to keep this movement going. We have such a strong organization in California. And part of what I want to talk about today is where we go next. So Assemblyman Ash Kalra mentioned AB 1436. We really need to flood the email inboxes of all of our legislators because we aren't currently at the 2/3 vote that we need. And if we don't get this bill passed on September 1st, the California courts are going to start moving forward with thousands of evictions here in California. These are our neighbors. These are restaurant workers. They're even teachers. They're janitors. These are the folks that we want to keep in our community. And also, we really want you to come out and support AB 1253, which is a California millionaire's tax. Since COVID-19 has started, just in the first couple of months, California's 154 billionaires made $175 billion in the first months of COVID, while 7 million Californians filed for unemployment. This is not a California for all. This is a policy failure, and we can rectify that by instituting progressive tax reform. So we have AB 1253. Rob Bonta also introduced a wealth tax this week as well, and we would love all of you to organize. But also there's some very specific things on the November 2020 ballot. Proposition 15, schools and community first. Senator Bernie Sanders is already supporting this measure, and many of you are aware of it. It unfreezes an unfair, it displaces an unfair freeze on commercial property tax rate and reclaims $12 billion a year for our public schools and our community colleges. We have Proposition 16, which repeals Proposition 209. Currently, we're one of 8 states in the country that doesn't allow government to consider race, sex, ethnicity in areas of public employment, public education, and public contracting. For many of us that support reparations, we can't even consider policies like that without repealing Prop 209. So vote yes on Prop 17. Next, we have Proposition 18, which would allow 17-year-olds who will turn 18 by the general election to vote in the primary or special election. So if there are 17-year-olds out there that are turning 18 by November 3rd, 2020, they could have voted in the March 3rd primary for Bernie Sanders. So this is also an important measure that we're encouraging folks to support. Proposition 20, Assemblymember Ash Kavra mentioned criminal justice reforms, of which he has been a leader of at the state legislature. Law enforcement, sheriffs, police, and district attorneys are trying to overturn many of these advances that we've made via the ballot box and state legislature. Please vote no on Prop 20. And many of you already know this measure because you're supporting it. Proposition 21, you got to expand rent control throughout the state of California. 2 more, we have Proposition 22. Uber, Lyft, DoorDash is spending $10 million to take away benefits to their contractors because now California deems them employees, which means that they're eligible for paid sick days, for healthcare, for minimum wage. This is something that Assemblymember Lorena Gonzalez passed, and now gig economy companies are trying to overturn because they don't want to pay what workers are fully entitled to. And then finally, we have Proposition 25. Many of you are working on eliminating cash bail. A vote yes on Proposition 25 will allow us to eliminate cash bail here in the state of California. I do have a PowerPoint presentation on this. I've shared it with some of the organizers, so if folks can keep sharing. Assemblymember Ashkara also mentioned down ballot races. We have some incredible people running for office. We have Alex Lee, who's in the audience right now, who's running for state assembly. We have Nithya Raman, who's running for LA City Council. Jesse Lopez for Santa Ana City Council. We also have potentially a first Cambodian American progressive woman, Sueli Saro, running for Long Beach City Council with Tanua Trash, an African American. And we also have 3 Latinx, young Latinx tenant rights advocates running for Hayward City Council. So we're trying to take the majority in Hayward and in Long Beach. And we have Carol Fife, co-founder of Monster Housing, running for Oakland City Council, and Cheryl Davila running for Berkeley City Council. Now, this is just a snapshot. I just wanted to name a few folks that were big Bernie supporters that are running for office right now that we got to support. And Bernie, the one thing I love about the senator is that he believes in down ballot candidates. He knows that winning the White House alone is not going to revolutionize our country. We have to win the school board races, the city council races. And in fact, actually, these are where most of the policies that we care about are actually happening. It's not in Washington, D.C. And these folks will eventually run for Congress. So we have to expand the squad by allowing folks to start their career. I was so grateful when Senator Sanders endorsed me in 2016 when I ran. It gave a huge push for our campaign. And it's because he reaches folks like you who are, again, the best volunteers I have ever worked with here in this nation. So thank you all so much. The work does not end on March 3rd or on August 21st when the DNC convention ends. We can win back the state of California. This is our state, and I'm so excited that there's so much happening and that we have this huge base that we built. Let's make sure that we did not build this base for nothing. In fact, when the senator hired me in June, he said, whatever infrastructure you build in the state of California, we want you to keep that going beyond March 3rd, because we know that California can do so much to show this country and lead on progressive policies and show that single-payer healthcare is possible and that it works and that it's great. And so when I was a supervisor, I was proud to make San Francisco the first and only city in the country to make community college free for all of our residents, free and universal, regardless of age, status, or income. And we got to show that we can do that up and down the state. So thank you to all of the amazing organizers that are here and for inviting me today. I'm so proud of what we've done, and I'm proud of what we will continue to do. Thank you.
We thank you, Jane, for your continued work in carrying the torch after Senator Sanders, and making sure that our states have a free education, and especially in particular San Francisco. Speaking of Medicare for All, I do want to hand this over to Cheng Sim and our beautiful hosts, Gina Harris and Erica Fernstein, to take it away with the why and how to win a single payer in California panel. So whenever you are ready, Lauren, maybe we can unmute. And thank you, and Jane, Ash, and our wonderful speakers for sharing your words of wisdom and so powerful words with us. So.
And one thing before we go, I know everyone here in the Zoom can see how many amazing faces we have here, but on the stream, they haven't gotten to see us yet. So right now we have 129 people at this meeting. So I'm gonna put us on gallery view. So you don't have to make some noise, but make some motion, all right? All right, show everyone what we got. Yeah, here's our pages of people, woohoo. All right, yeah, this is amazing. Okay,
I also
now,
want to say, Lauren, that we Pharmaz is monitoring the live stream, so I wanted to let people know that the California for Bernie site that has 25,000 followers, sorry, 65,000 followers, we're live streaming there, as well as another Bernie group that has over 7,000. I think we're also on Lauren Stein's. So we are probably being viewed by hundreds, if not approaching 1,000 people now. Potentially, we'll get the data later. So we have a very big audience. So it's beyond what you see in the room, which is actually growing very rapidly. So thank you so much, everyone. And I wanted to just mention, I posted in the chat, and I'll do it again. If you could share to your friends how they can Zoom in or even live stream. I'll share it again. Thank you.
let's go to Cheng Sim.
Hello, everybody. We were just need a couple of minutes to get started. And Dennis, have you found Kalkaden to make her the co-host?
Done.
Great. So are you set then, Dennis?
I am ready to go.
All right. So welcome, everybody. It's so great to see all of you here. You know, this afternoon we have a great panel. So this is the first panel of the day for our two-day People's Assembly Building Beyond Bernie events. And my name is Cheng Sim Lim. I'm a Bernie Sanders delegate to the Democratic National Convention from Los Angeles, California. All of us involved in organizing this panel would like to thank the co-sponsors of this event, DSA LA Healthcare Justice Committee, Healthcare for All LA Chapter, Progressive Asian Network for Action, or PANA, and Physicians for a National Health Program, or PNHP, Southern California. We also have a program update. We heard yesterday from Patrice Cullors' office that due to an urgent personal matter, Ms. Cullors will unfortunately not be able to participate in that panel discussion as originally planned. So we send our best wishes to her. We have taken the opportunity, however, to feature someone from the new emerging generation of Medicare for All activists, inspired by Bernie's push for Medicare for All in 2016 and 2020. You'll see when I introduce the panelists. But before I do that, I'd like to go over the sequence of this panel discussion. So we will introduce the panelists first. After that, we will have about 20 to 25 minutes of the panelists addressing why we need single payer in California. This why discussion will be moderated by Gina Harris. Gina is a nurse, activist, member of the LA County Party Central Committee, and a fellow Bernie delegate. And this will be followed by another 20 to 25 minutes of the panelists addressing how to win single payer in California. This how discussion will be moderated by Erica Fernstein. Erica is the co-director and co-chair of Healthcare for All, president of the Pacific Palisades Democratic Club, a California Democratic delegate since 2017, and a Democratic Socialist. Then after Erica, we will open the floor for 20 minutes of questions from the audience. So either Gina or Erica will call on you to ask your question. We ask that you add your name to the queue to ask questions by doing the following. If you're in a Zoom meeting, please raise your hand. You will see at the bottom of your Zoom screen a participant's symbol. Click on that symbol, and at the bottom of the column that pops up, you'll see a green hand symbol. Click on the hand symbol to raise your hand. If you're calling in from a phone, press *9. If you're watching a live stream on YouTube, Facebook, etc., you can type your question into the chats of the respective streams. So each person will have up to 1 minute to ask their question. We will be strict, very strict, in enforcing the 1 minute limit. You will be muted if you exceed 1 minute. Please keep yourself muted when you're not talking, and you can do that by clicking off the microphone symbol on the bottom left of your screen. And now that we've gone over the housekeeping announcements, I'd like to share a little background of how the People's Assembly building Beyond Bernie came to be. A number of us Bernie delegates decided about a month ago that instead of being frustrated with our lack of agency as delegates and the DNC platform, that we could take this little window of time as delegates to act affirmatively, positively. We decided that we should get together with grassroots activists working outside the Democratic Party to put forward our own grassroots-driven agenda. And this weekend of action is the result. And our actions address key issues that have been omitted or are inadequately addressed in the DNC platform. A glaring omission in the party platform is, of course, single-payer Medicare for all. I don't have to remind you, we're living in the middle of a pandemic that has disproportionately ravaged Black, Latinx, Indigenous, and Pacific Islander communities. As California delegates, we have to ask if Medicare for all has a longer horizon nationally because we don't have President Bernie Sanders. What about California, the largest state in the country, with an economy that outranks the United Kingdom? We have a governor in office who campaigned as a supporter of single payer. Can we hold him accountable and do here what Saskatchewan did for Canada? I'm going to introduce to you now our distinguished panelists who bring a rich and varied range of experiences to bear on the question of why and how to win single payer in California. Akili has over 50 years of experience as a labor and community organizer and political leader. Dennis, could you spotlight Akili?
I hope this is him because his name right here. I'll just do it.
He's listed as Baba Akili.
Gotcha.
Yay, good to
Baba
see you.
Akili.
Yeah. So Akili has dedicated his life to social and racial justice. He is the director of the Fannie Lou Hamer Institute and an organizer with Black Lives Matter LA. In preparing for today's event, Akili shared a newspaper article about him doing a single-payer town hall in Oklahoma in 1993. And he's quoted in the article saying, "Single payer is better than the then-in-the-works Clinton health proposal." This is the measure of Akili's endurance and commitment to the cause of single payer. Kalkadan Alamayu is a recent high school graduate who will be attending UCLA this fall. So Dennis, could you spotlight Kalkadan? As a young progressive advocate, she has been working with the Ethiopian Democratic Club of Los Angeles, advocating for Ethiopian Americans in LA on a plethora of issues, one of which is Medicare for all. She has advocated for Black students at her high school as the president of the Black Student Union. Inspired by Bernie's campaign in 2016 and 2020, she describes herself as a, quote, fierce believer in single payer, unquote, and is the student liaison now for Healthcare for All LA chapter. Maureen Cruz is a former LA County clinic nurse, the current co-director of Healthcare for All LA chapter. Maureen has experience as a program coordinator working in LAUSD, a research associate at UCLA, and was the 50th Assembly District Executive Board member of the California Democratic Party. I will add that Maureen is probably the staunchest advocate of single payer that I know. Maria Estrada is an activist from Southeast Los Angeles and is on the board of the Native Women's Unity Association and one of the founders of Compton for Bernie. She has organized actions throughout the LA area addressing immigration rights, human rights, indigenous rights, environmental justice, healthcare for all, and numerous issues affecting her community. She is also running for state assembly in the 63rd district against the Speaker of the Assembly, who shelved SB 562, the single payer healthcare bill, and came within 9 points of him in the 2018 general election. Maria is currently campaigning throughout the Southeast area and has been volunteering her time working at food banks and providing resources to her community. And finally, the last panelist, Dr. Paul Song, is a board certified radiation oncologist and progressive activist. He was most recently on the faculty of the Samuel Ocean Cancer Center at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center and currently volunteers part-time seeing Medicaid and uninsured patients at Dignity California Hospital. Dr. Song is president of the California chapter of Physicians for a National Health Program. He served as the first visiting fellow on healthcare policy in the California Department of Insurance in 2013 and was co-chair of the campaign for a Healthy California Coalition during the SB 562 fight. Dr. Song serves on the national board of PNHP and Progressive Democrats of America. He was recently a national surrogate for the Bernie Sanders campaign. So welcome to all our panelists. We are so honored to have you all here today. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Gina Harris to start the panel discussion.
All righty. I'm going to give a couple of caveats right now. I have 2 cats and they know that I'm doing something. And so now they're being needy. So this is the string that came in our DNC swag bag that came with for our keepsake credential, and they love this string. So I think my cats are more thankful to the DNC than I am right now. So I'm going to try and throw this string for them so that they go away. So if you hear meowing, I apologize. They're just being so needy. But I wanted to say a fun fact before we get into the questions that just happened this morning at the Urban Partners Food Bank, where Erica and I were at 6 o'clock this morning. So we are definitely people who will walk the talk. But I talked to Assembly Member Santiago, who was there, and he shows up. He actually, does some work. And I asked them, what does Gavin want to give us single payer? What does he want? That is my question. I'm very straight shooter. And he told me 330 billion. And I said, well, does he have Venmo? And, the reason why I'm asking this is because, right now we're in the Healthy California Commission hearings and all that jazz going on. To me, it's a waste of time. But I want to know, what is it that, what is it going to take you assembly members? What is it going to take our governor to just jump on board and say, okay, if it's 330 billion, like I said, okay, I'll find it and I'll Venmo you. But that is a conversation for another time. I just thought I'd share that funniness with you because that just happened this morning. And I thought it was kind of funny to see his face when I said, does he have Venmo? So just jumping right into it for the sake of time, because I could talk about that for a while. And this is kind of just a question for all the panelists, just to kind of start us off. I think that when we do these panels, we always go hard into the statistics and everything. But what we want to know is, for us, to me, to get to a single payer ideology or thought process, if you're American, if you haven't lived in another country, it typically something has happened. So I want to know, what healthcare injustice did you experience that made you believe that single payer is the more just healthcare system than the for-profit system that exists today? So, if you want, we can, I really don't, it's so hard to do these things via Zoom. You know, it's kind of like, how do you pick someone? But you know, Dr. Song, you're spotlighted right now, so I'm gonna make it easy for Dennis. So if you want to go ahead and start with that question, that'd be great.
Well, first of all, thanks everyone for allowing us to be here, and what an amazing group of people and family. It's so great to be with the whole Bernie family once again. So I've been a radiation oncologist for about 25 years, and probably about 3 or 4 years into my practice, I started to see too many of my own patients going bankrupt or being denied the care that they needed, particularly as they started to become more progressive with their cancer. And I started to do some research into what was broken about our healthcare system, and soon realized that it's really the multiple for-profit entities that really control our healthcare system. So seeing firsthand the toll that was taking on patients who had worked their whole lives, done the right thing, had insurance, that were going bankrupt was really the last straw for me. And so for the last probably 20 years, I've been very much trying to push for this Medicare for all system that our politicians still refuse to give us.
Awesome, thank you. Maria, do you want to answer that? I know you're going to answer it with some fire, so just
Southeast LA is the epicenter of the resurgence of the coronavirus, and we have the highest rates of uninsured children and the second highest rates of uninsured adults in LA County. We also have high levels of leukemia and different types of cancers, as well as respiratory issues here. So the necessity for single payer healthcare is as pronounced as it is anywhere that it is in here in Southeast LA. For me, I talk to people all the time here, and I hear stories of people having to go to the emergency and having to pay $120 in urgent care, and now they can't pay their rent. So it's a very, very real issue. Just the city of Southgate, 37% of the people in Southgate don't have any type of health care, nothing. And the people in Southgate and in Southeast live 10 years less than people in Beverly Hills, simply because we're surrounded by oil wells, refineries, and all kinds of companies that release carcinogens into our environment, our air, water, our bodies. I was specifically asked to run against the speaker after he shelved SB 562, and there was the recall that was done, and the common question was being asked, who's going to run against him? And you don't do a recall to put in a candidate, you do a recall to get rid of who's there. And actually that wasn't even something that was even thought of. And apparently there was a meeting when they asked me to run, and I honestly would have never imagined it. But the need for healthcare is, especially now during a pandemic, there is absolutely no excuse for the assembly not to work on that bill. The fact is, the work has been done. We do not need $300 billion to get this done. That's just false. Gavin Newsom got the support of the Nurses Association. I have no idea why, because he couldn't even say SB 562 for most of his campaign. He doesn't have the what it takes to get it done, to be perfectly honest. And I have no faith in him or his commission and what they're doing. We need to get people elected who are going to fight for this and champion this bill and get it passed. And if I have to go to district in this state to talk to people that are healthcare advocates to fight for this, I would do that. This is absolutely necessary. There's absolutely no excuse. If Gavin Newsom hasn't done the work and done his homework to know how much money we need and what it takes to get this done, then he's just actually blowing smoke up our ass. Sorry for the language. He's just wasting time, resources, and wasting our energy. We need to talk to people that are going to get it done, and he's not that person.
And that's why, yes, sorry.
We need to force the 10.
And that's what I knew you were going to bring. You were going to speak it like it is. And that's what this panel is. So, I mean, I encourage you panelists to speak truth to power. You know that the people who are watching these panels, if it was the establishment that decided to check in on us, great. I want them to, but this is basically friends on friends here. So they know that we're going to speak truth to power. So don't feel that you need to hold back to be politically correct. Just be honest is my thing. So I'll move the same question along to Baba Akili.
Thank you. And I want to make a quick correction.
that article that you read, that I sent you, was from 1992, and there was a town hall in Little Rock, Arkansas, right after Clinton got elected, and it was we brought together people from around the country to lift up single payer, and we had this brief meeting with him, and we gave him our health security card, and so that was that was an effort at trying to get that administration to look at single payer as a viable, necessary option. And the way I came to single payer was my daughter broke her leg, at school when she was playing, and I didn't have healthcare coverage. And so we went to the doctor, and they put a leg in the cast, and they did all that, but I couldn't. When we went back to get it off, I couldn't pay. And so we literally had to sneak out. And my children were quite embarrassed and upset. And why did we do this, Daddy? Because we literally had to sneak out because I couldn't pay. It was embarrassing. It was hurtful. And I thought there had to be a better way. That this seriously does not make any sense. That we would tie healthcare to a person's job. And even if they had a job, if they didn't have healthcare, then it still didn't matter. And so that personal experience triggered the thinking in me to there's got to be a better way, and what is that better way? And as I was doing work, much of the work I've been doing for many years, it led me to Neighbor to Neighbor. Neighbor to Neighbor was transitioning from our work around Central America and support of the changes in Central America and moving to the National Health Security Plan. And that's kind of what helped me get involved in it. I was we did a lot in the early 90s, leading up to putting an initiative on the ballot in 1994 that would have made California a single payer state. So one, it was a personal experience, and two, it was my continued organizational work that I had been doing around the issue of racial and social justice.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, up next, Maureen.
There. Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for being on this call. Early in the 1970s, I first became aware when I was a graduate student, and I was working as a research associate at UCLA with a program called the Community Liaison and Evaluation of Programs. And I was interviewing people who had been patients in a variety of UCLA-sponsored research done by, psychiatry residents and fellows. And this was, it was a program to assess what happened to people afterward. And I encountered people weeping on the phone because they were no longer needed for the research. They could no longer access mental health care. And that to me was a real shock. And I just felt awful checking in with these people and finding out that there were no resources for them. Then later, I left graduate school and I became an RN. And the shock continued when I was a bedside hospital RN, and I realized that in the 1970s, dying seniors were getting treatments that they didn't need because it made money for the hospital. They were called rent cases. And at that same time, young people with families and futures were denied care. We had one young man who actually worked for the hospital in accounting. He was in his, I would say, late 20s, early 30s, and his insurance ran out. So he was booted out of the hospital. And in order to, he was in an automobile accident, so he was in pretty bad shape. He had young kids. In those days, one had to lose everything to be admitted to the county system to get care. And the next blow was in the 1990s when I was a public health clinic nurse for the county of LA. And I witnessed the absolute decimation of public health, closing the clinics, stripping away of services for the poorest people in the county, while LA County Hospital was doing a remodel. And for a hospital that had people lined up in gurneys in the hallways and people lined up on the sidewalk waiting to get in for the clinic care, that remodel removed about a third of the beds in the hospital rather than adding them. In 2000, my retired longtime teacher, father, who's a high school teacher, on Kaiser, he did not get the care that he needed to recover from his stroke as a Kaiser patient. 10 years later, my sister, who taught in a federal program in Oakland for the disabled adults that was dismantled under Obama, then she lost her job and her health care. She ended up with the unaffordable COBRA. And she asked me, wow, all that money I put into the system and never used, now that, and she's a single mother of 2, now that I needed care, where's all that money I paid into the system for decades? So, and it's just been more of the same. So I got very, very involved about 20 years ago. And the message all along the way was first that poor people don't matter. And the second thing that happened is that over time, that has devolved into no people matter. So Martin Luther King said it best. He said an injury to one is an injury to all. And sooner or later, one becomes all. And that's where we are now. Thank you.
There we are, absolutely. So I'll move it on to Calcadon, and I want to tell you, it's actually great. I mean, you know, not having Patrice was one thing, but then when, you know, you guys told me Calcadon was going to join, I looked at it and I said, you know what? Hell yeah, Gen Z represent, because Gen Z tends to make millennials look bad. Everyone wants to look at the millennial like we're the badassery. We're kind of not. We are and we're not. Gen Z has kind of like shown us up quite a few times, between the TikToking Trump's rally to, you know, the Parkland, like the Parkland kids, mobilizing, to now we have, you know, a new college, just barely entering college, already on this fight for single payer. And I'm 32 years old and just now really getting on board. So I feel bad. I look bad, but I'm so happy to have you on this panel. So, you know, the same question, what is it that brought you at this like very young age where you should be TikToking and at the beach or something right now? Please don't be at the beach. You know, like, what is it that has you right here?
Thank you. And yes, Generation Z is absolutely the best generation. That international experience that you were talking about when you first asked the question is kind of something that I would bring. Because I came here when I was 7 years old and I lived in Ethiopia. And even though I was really young, I remember my time there incredibly, like vividly, especially when it came to the realities of poverty. So just for a reference, Ethiopia is among the top 10 poorest countries in the world. So wherever you live, no matter how privileged you were, no matter how many cars you owned, etc., you open your front door every morning and there will be a family at your doorstep, and there'll be dozens more on your block. So it's not something that you could ignore. Apathy is really not an option. And then you compare that to America, where, you know, if you live in Santa Monica, you have to drive, what, an hour or 2 to see Skid Row, and that's America's version of poverty. And then, you know, I'm watching these political debates and watching Bernie Sanders up there, and then I see people like, you know, Pete Buttigieg, who are Democratic and progressive, having the audacity to get on a stage and talk about access to healthcare, which is pretty much code for, you know, you can go to the hospital, we'll treat you if you're sick, but then you'll lose your house afterwards, or, you know, you'll lose your livelihood, and now you'll file bankruptcy. And then they just, you know, they package it in a BS line like Medicare for all who want it. No, single payer and single payer only. All lives have the same value, and no one person should suffer needlessly because they're not rich enough to live. So that's on a moral basis, and unfortunately, a lot of our leaders have sold out their morals to the highest bidder. But even if we focus on the financial aspect, the very existence of a private sector, when we talk about healthcare, it undermines and threatens the financial foundation of the public system. So no, I'm not, you know, settling for a public option in the wealthiest nation in the world, and especially not in the state with the 5th largest GDP. That level of immorality and apathy is incomprehensible to me. So that's why I'm here.
Wow. And once again, millennial, we just got shown up, like, whoa. So that's how I know change is coming, because this is coming after I am. I'm opening the door for her. And this is what we need to do. So we're running over time. So the questions I may, hop around on these questions really quick, and we probably won't get through all of them. But really quick, Maureen, I want to address this to you because as it was mentioned, Senator Sanders' platform and his message was misconstrued so much in the media. And a lot of people are confused by what single payer really means. So could you provide a simple explanation for what single payer means and how it worked in California? I know that that's not a simple way, it's not simple to explain, but let's say Calcadon needed to put it on a meme so she could spread it to her friends. What would you say single payer in California is?
Maureen.
Yeah, it's like, I think you're on mute. Oh, the great Zoom, you're on mute.
Waste a lot of time unmuting.
All right.
Anyway, yeah, single payer is a unified financing system that will provide universal care, that is care to everyone, and all means all, for the same exact quality of care. We would not, it does not mean tiered care, which is public option and Medicaid and Medicare, because that is a bigoted supremacist ideology of privilege, where some lives are worth more than others. So single payer is a universal system. It covers everyone for all medically necessary care. You have free choice of a provider. There is no network, no out-of-pocket costs, no copays, no deductibles, no premiums. The state becomes the insurer. They are the insurance company, but the care is actually privately delivered in that the hospitals and the doctors are not employees of the state. It totally eliminates that cost sharing. It saves hundreds of billions of dollars so that we can provide the same quality of care to all. It also has a component in it for equalizing, more than equalizing, giving areas that need more facilities, that need clinics, that need hospitals, because we've seen these healthcare deserts now being stripped out of all their facilities by a for-profit system. It would be the investment of our tax dollars into these areas to provide the exact same care for everyone. And when people say to me, well, I don't know, how can we afford it, this and that? And I say, when the unhoused person, when the undocumented, when the gardener and the housekeeper of these commissioners and of the politicians and of the CEOs and of the governor all have the same care, you can't buy any other care, we all have the same care, two things are going to happen. There will be plenty of money for it, and the quality will be high. So that's why we say no tiered system, no, you can have a separate, you can buy something different. No, everybody in, nobody out. All lives are equal.
Thank you so much, Maureen.
Universal healthcare.
Thank you so much, Maureen. I will be the first one that said that this public option idea is nothing but an economic separate but equal, and we know separate but equal does not work. No. So, like I said, I'm going to move these questions along, but these last two questions I'm going to ask, I'm going to definitely want to get the panel on, and if we could just, keep it brief, but I definitely want to hear, so how, in your view, would single payer serve low income or underserved communities compared to the current system? For example, how would a single payer system improve the quality of life for the Black, Indigenous, Latinx, Pacific Islander communities who suffered disproportionately from COVID? And right now, I want to bring up, I know Baba Akili, thank you for being on this panel, because I know you recently, lost someone to COVID. And it's really terrible, because we know that we didn't have to. And so I want to start off with this question to you. I know that you're still feeling, the loss of your family member, but I mean, how do you think, can this have helped this current situation in our community, most importantly?
Thank you. And yes, I lost my cousin Monday. She lives in Florida. And because DeSantis is a replica of Trump, he hasn't taken responsibility and has engaged in the same inept, stupid, and incompetent approach to handling this pandemic. And I blame, quite frankly, Trump. I blame the governor of Florida for my cousin's death. And so, but that's part of a system in America. And there are 4 conditions that Black people have to deal with in the US: white supremacy, institutional racism, individual bigotry, and mass denial. And it's the last one that allowed the other 3 to exist. And quite frankly, what single payer does and Medicare for All does is, it's very simply, it's one system, one approach, one payer. And while that will scare Black people, because we know when we hear in America for all, it don't mean us. Like justice for all and all the rest of it. We know it don't mean us. As a matter of fact, we chuckle when we hear it, because this country has a history of denial and deprivation to Black people. And so we have to make the difference is that we are going to have to fight for it. We are going to have to demand it, and we are going to have to be in the center of making it work. That's the only way it will be of meaningful impact to Black folks. And that's why I say, we have got to add Black voices. We've got to add Latino voices. We've got to add indigenous voices, because if we don't, even if we get single payer, even if we get Medicare for all, and Medicare works right now, but it still has, and because of institutional racism, and still an impact on Black folks. And so part of it is we are going to have to fight for it. Like, we're going to have to struggle, and we're going to have to demand. We cannot allow Medicare for all to come into being and not be a part of it. We cannot see it happening without being the center of it, because we know what will happen. We know, and we got a history of it. And so part of the reason why I, in the 90s, was working for it, because I knew, I had a personal experience, but I also knew that we would be left out. And if you couple that with the current health discrimination that exists, the current health disparity that exists, unless we fight for, struggle for, and demand inclusion and participation, full participation, it will have minimal impact in our community. And that's why I'm on this call. That's why I have been a fighter for single payer for a long time, because we need that voice. We need that position. We need that struggle, and it will be uncomfortable, because we will have to challenge white folks. We're gonna have to challenge the assumption that somehow or another Black folks can take more pain than other people. We're gonna have to challenge the assumption that just because we have sickle cell anemia and are in pain, that we can handle it. No, we are going to have to fight, struggle, and demand.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you and I and Calcadon too, we're about to hit it hard coming in the upcoming future, especially when we get to have in-person meetings again. So I'm going to move this question along to Dr. Song. The Asian American, specifically Pacific Islander, surprisingly, the number affected by COVID here in California, the numbers were staggering. It was the Black community, and then the brown community, and then AAPI, and it was just like, the Pacific Islander, I mean, granted, I know that it's a little bit different demographic, but what are your thoughts on how, if a single payer system could also, how can that affect in the, the AAPI and Asian American community?
So first of all, I just want to give a shout out to the shirt that I'm wearing for Shirley Chisholm, because as we
love Shirley.
We'll soon elect Kamala Harris as vice president, I want people to realize that the original member of the squad was Shirley Chisholm, and she really touted healthcare and the problems that existed with healthcare. She said that the problem was we viewed it too much as a privilege available only to those who can afford it, and that was the real reason our healthcare system was in such a scandalous state. And she said this in 1972. This is more
I didn't see her in the room, and I was just worried because it could, I think it's supposed to be scheduled.
Mary, can you mute yourself?
Oh, okay. So just the reason I want to point that out is this healthcare as a privilege still exists, and it exists across all communities. Primarily, communities of color have been disadvantaged because truly it has been a privilege, not a right for communities of color. But within the Asian American community, we are not all this model minority that we've been led to been characterized as. There's a fair number of Asian Americans who are uninsured here in the state of California. There are lots of Asian Americans who are living in poverty. So though the members of that community face the same challenges as others, it's just not been as dramatic. The thing I really want to stress about healthcare, because I know we don't have much time, but I just want to get this point across, is so 4 years ago, I got in a lot of trouble because I used a very derogatory term to refer to members of Congress who were beholden to the private insurance industry and the pharmaceutical industry. And unfortunately, there was more outrage against the term rather than the number of people that are left behind by our current healthcare system. And yet this is so true, and why we still cannot get the things that we deserve, that we have too many Democrats that are beholden to corporations and not to the will of the constituency of our individuals. And I think it's very important to get a few things across. You heard Amy Klobuchar during the debate saying that 100 million people were going to lose their employer-sponsored healthcare if we went to Bernie's Medicare for All plan. Well, we've now had 27 million people lose their employer-sponsored healthcare. You had Joe Biden, who obviously we have to get elected in this time of an existential threat, say that Medicare for All, the deaths that we saw in Italy and in Europe were an indictment of how Medicare for All didn't work. Well, let's look at the facts, and we need to make sure that we support getting Trump out of office, but we need to fight back hard on the lies that are being perpetuated by our own party. And I think it's very, very important. So when we look at educating and continuing to everyone across the board, teaching them about the facts of healthcare, I think you'll see that support for Medicare for All, which already is 87% among Democrats, continue to climb, and 69% among independents. But we need to make these points. We need to get it across now. And sorry to deviate, but I just really wanted us to be mindful at the same time, do not give up, to continue to tell the truth about why this is the system we need, and now more than ever.
Awesome, thank you. And lastly, Maria, I know you've already kind of spoken to this, but is there anything you wanted to add to this question to, from the Latinx community? Is Maria, wait, I lost her on my little. Here. Okay, sorry, I lost you on my little thing.
So I'm just more focused of getting it done at the state level, because if we could pass it in California, then it'll go across the country. I'm of the belief that we have a better chance of getting it passed under Trump than Biden, simply because Biden has already stated that he would not sign it. So I'm not going to engage in the presidential election, because I personally will not be supporting the Democratic ticket, and I won't be supporting Donald Trump. So this is a problem. This capitalist system is the problem, and the people, the political parties are irrelevant. These are all capitalists that we're talking about. And the problem is, the disease is capitalism, and that's what's costing lives. And they're going to put their profits over our lives, and that's the bottom line here. They do not care about the fact that you have people who they're not going to go get tested, because even if they are sick, they don't have the resources to get the treatment they need. You could go from any issue, especially in the Latino community, where people will avoid going to the doctor simply because of the expense of it. That's going to be, they're going to have to make a decision between paying their electric bill, feeding their family, or going to visit the doctor. This is an extremely urgent issue that should be at the forefront of every political campaign, at the forefront of every meeting, at the forefront of everybody's circle, because this is costing lives every day. Not just the fact that we have COVID, the fact that I live in a city, in an area that people are dying because they, just for living here, their lives are cut short 10 years. The fact that we have so many children here with so many medical issues just from being contaminated, young people with cancer, which is usually more aggressive than when you're older. We have to get this passed, and we cannot depend on the Democratic Party. That is not my party. I'm running as a Democrat. They do not represent me or my community. They represent the interest of their donors and their own agenda. And that agenda does not include getting health care for everyone, because if that were the case, we would have had that shit a long time ago. Let's just be honest. Democrats are a bigger threat to the progressive movement than the Republican Party. So we need to stop pretending like Democrats represent us, they're about us, they care about us. This is capitalism, plain and simple. And we need to start looking outside of the box and stop depending on that party to carry us and to represent us. We need to start fighting outside of that party as much as within it. I'm in the LA County Central County Committee, the largest and most powerful Central County Committee in the country. I cannot even express to you how corrupt that organization is.
So I don't mean
to focus on healthcare, and we need to get the people elected that are going to fight for that. Whether they're Democrats or it's irrelevant. We need to get people that are going to fight for that issue.
Exactly. And I agree, like, it is very disappointing to see how many people come to our communities for votes. And when we say all we want is someone to give a damn, all they say is okay, and then turn around and write the most dangerous legislation to our communities. But I know I'm running over time, but I really want to get this last question out. So Chang Sim, bear with me because it's so important. And it's just such a powerful question. And it's something that I don't think that we think about too much and especially in the Black and Brown community. So Baba Akili, I'm going to bring this, I didn't forget about you, Calcadon, but I'm going to come back. But I want to bring this question to you primarily. It's how can we address the mistrust between our historically marginalized communities and the healthcare system, especially the Black community, where we have been the victims of healthcare racism, experimentation, and anything else. How can we convince our community to trust this when that trust has been broken for decades?
Well, first of all, we can't.
Well, that's simply put.
Yeah, just say that. Let me just start with that. What we are going to need is credible message and credible messengers. And then we're going to need relationships. We don't have any right now. And one of the things I learned from the 1994 effort